Have you ever had the feeling that you are living a life that was written for you, but not by you? That you are an actor on a stage, reciting lines from a script you never approved. You might recognize the scenes, the characters, and the recurring plot twists. The same financial worries that appear on cue. The same relational dynamics that play out like a broken record. The same feelings of being stuck or overlooked, reenacting themselves with painful predictability. We walk through our days reacting, responding, and resisting, believing that the world outside of us is the sole author of our experience. We feel the sting of a criticism, and we carry it for days. We see the number in our bank account, and we feel a wave of panic. We hear a news report, and we brace for a future of difficulty. We have been taught to believe that our inner world, our thoughts and feelings, are simply reflections of this outer reality, that we are mirrors to a world that happens to us. But what if this is the greatest misconception of all? What if the entire relationship of cause and effect has been understood backwards? What if your inner world is not the reflection, but the projector? What if your private, silent, inner conversations are not just commentary on your life, but the very creative force that is shaping it into existence? This is the foundational premise of a law as old as time itself. A principle known as the law of assumption. It is a departure from merely wishing or hoping for a better reality. Instead, it is the radical understanding that by assuming the feeling of your wish already fulfilled, you command your reality to conform. This is not a philosophy of passive hope. It is a practical guide to the mechanics of creation. A journey into the discovery that the power to change your world does not lie in manipulating the external, but in transforming the internal, in consciously choosing the scripts that you allow to play in the theater of your mind. And through the convenience and immersive power of the audiobook format, these profound, life-altering messages can become the new soundtrack to your life, reprogramming your subconscious mind as you drive, as you work, as you walk, preparing you to step into a new reality, one that is not given to you, but chosen by you. Because by learning to talk to yourself in a new way, you will find that you are not just changing your mind, you are changing your world. To truly understand the power you hold, we must first make a critical distinction, one that shifts the very foundation of how you perceive your relationship with the universe. Many of you may be familiar with a popular concept known as the law of attraction. It has been a gateway for millions into the idea that our thoughts have power. And for that, it has served a purpose. The general idea is that you are like a magnet, sending out a frequency of desire into the cosmos. And if you hold that frequency long enough, you will attract your desire back to you, like a ship being drawn to a lighthouse beacon across a vast ocean. It is a philosophy of asking, of wanting, of sending out an order and waiting for its delivery. It positions you as the receiver, separate from the source of your good, hoping that the universe will hear your plea and respond favorably. But today, we are going beyond that. We are graduating from that kindergarten of creation to a far more profound, immediate, and liberating truth. A principle that doesn't ask you to attract anything, because it recognizes that you can't attract what you already are. This is the law of assumption. The law of assumption does not see you as a separate entity begging a distant cosmos. It sees you as the center, the heart, the operant power of your own reality. It states that everything you could ever possibly desire, every reality you could ever wish to experience, is not something to be created or attracted from a void, but something that already exists, right now. As a potential state within your own consciousness, creation is finished. The roles of the pauper and the prince, the state of sickness and the state of health, the experience of loneliness and the experience of profound love. They are all finished rooms in the infinite mansion of your own mind. You do not need to build the room. You only need to select it, enter it, and occupy it. The law of attraction says, I will believe it when I see it. The law of assumption declares, I will see it when I believe it. It is the difference between hoping for rain and declaring the rain is here. By feeling the coolness on your skin and the wetness on the ground before a single cloud appears in the sky. This is the secret that mystics and sages have spoken of for centuries. But it was perhaps most clearly and practically articulated in the 20th century by a man named Neville Goddard. Neville was not a guru in the modern sense. He was a practical mystic. A man who took the esoteric promises of ancient scriptures and put them to the test in the laboratory of his own life and the lives of his students. He taught with an authority born not of theory, but of experience. At the heart of his teaching is a simple, yet earth-shattering phrase, assuming the feeling of the wish fulfilled. Let that sink in. Not assuming the thought of the wish fulfilled, but the feeling. Feeling is the language that speaks to the deeper, subconscious aspect of your being. The master builder that arranges the world you see. To want something is to admit you do not have it. To desire is to be in a state of lack. But to feel as though your prayer is already answered. To feel the relief, the gratitude, the joy of its accomplishment, is to move into that finished room. To occupy that state of being. When you do this, Neville taught, the world has no choice but to conform. To reshape itself around your new assumption. Your new state of consciousness. The most powerful way to grasp this is through Neville's own story of transformation. The story of Barbados. As a young man, Neville was living in New York City during the Great Depression. He was a struggling dancer, with no money to his name. But he was filled with an intense desire to spend the winter with his family back on the island of Barbados. From a logical, 3D perspective, it was impossible. He had no job, no savings, nothing. He presented this problem to his great friend and mentor, an old Ethiopian mystic named Abdullah. Neville explained his lack of funds, the impossibility of the situation. He expected sympathy, perhaps some practical advice. Instead, Abdullah looked at him sternly and said, "You are in Barbados." Neville, confused, began to argue, to show his empty pockets, to point to the reality of his New York-based poverty. Abdullah cut him off, repeating with unshakable conviction, "You are in Barbados." He then instructed Neville to walk out of his apartment, not as a man who wants to go to Barbados, but as a man who has just come from Barbados and is living in New York. For days, Neville wrestled with this seemingly insane advice. How could he pretend? But finally, out of desperation and trust, he surrendered. That night, as he went to bed in his humble New York room, he did not just think about Barbados. He decided to sleep, physically, in his New York bed, but mentally, in his father's house in Barbados. He closed his eyes and began to imagine. He didn't see himself on a plane. That would be the journey, the process. Abdullah had taught him to always go to the end, to the wish fulfilled. So, he imagined the end result. He felt the bed in his father's house. He looked out the window and saw the swaying palm trees and the sparkling Caribbean Sea. He could smell the salty air. He could hear the sounds of the island, so different from the city. He walked through the rooms of the house. Touching familiar furniture, he conjured the feeling of being there, the feeling of home, the joy of being with his family. Until this imagined reality felt more real than the cold New York night around him. He drifted off to sleep, steeped in the feeling of his wish being an accomplished fact. He lived this way, in his imagination. Every night, during the day, he went about his business, but he carried within him the secret feeling, the quiet confidence of a man whose trip was already secured. He was living from the end. A short time later, a letter arrived. It was from his brother Victor in Barbados. Inside, with no explanation, was a steamship ticket for a passage to Barbados and a small amount of money. His brother wrote that he had a sudden, inexplicable urge to bring Neville home for Christmas. Neville would later learn that his brother had no plans to do this. But the compulsion became so strong that he acted upon it. Neville had not lifted a finger in the external world. He hadn't asked anyone for money. He had simply changed his consciousness. He assumed the state of being in Barbados and the world in a way he could not have devised, rearranged itself to make it so. His brother Victor was simply playing the part that Neville's new assumption had assigned to him. This story is the master key. It demonstrates that the world is not a solid, fixed, and unyielding structure. It is a mirror. It is a profoundly obedient servant to your state of consciousness. Imagine standing in front of a mirror with a frown on your face. You want to see a smile. Do you plead with the mirror? Do you try to physically manipulate the reflection to bend its lips upwards? Of course not. The idea is absurd. You understand, instinctively, that to change the reflection, you must first change the source. You must smile. The moment you smile, the reflection smiles back. Instantly. Without question. Without hesitation. Your current reality, your 3D world, is that mirror. Your health, your finances, your relationships. They are all reflections of the inner attitudes and assumptions you hold to be true. To try and change the circumstances without first changing your consciousness is as fruitless as trying to change the reflection without changing your face. It is a battle you can never win, but when you truly change your inner state, when you dare to assume that you are already the person you wish to be, the reflection in the mirror of your world has no choice but to change. It is law. Consciousness is the one and only reality, not a part of reality, not a factor in reality, but the only reality. The world is simply your consciousness, objectified. So, the great secret is this: creation is finished. All possibilities, all outcomes, all realities exist now as dormant states in your consciousness. You are not a tiny, powerless being in a vast, indifférent univers. You are the gardener of your own mind, and your imagination is the tool you use to select which seeds you will plant. Your power lies not in struggling with the weeds of your current reality, but in turning your attention away from them and focusing entirely on the feeling, the substance, of the beautiful flower you wish to cultivate. You must feel its texture, inhale its fragrance, and admire its color as if it were already in full bloom before you. This is the foundation. This is the great shift from asking to knowing, from wanting to being. We now know that our imagination, when fused with feeling, is the creative act itself. So the logical question that follows is, how do we master this inner world? How do we learn to direct our imagination consciously, to speak the language that commands reality to change? This begins with understanding the very nature of an assumption and the power of our own inner conversations. Having grasped the revolutionary idea that your imagination creates your reality, we must now learn the language of creation itself. This language does not consist of elaborate rituals or complex incantations spoken to the sky. It is a language you are already speaking, every moment of every day, mostly unconsciously. The very grammar of this language is built upon a single, powerful concept, the assumption. So, what is an assumption? It is crucial that we understand this with absolute clarity, for it is nothing like a wish, a hope, or a decide. A wish is a confession of lack. To say I wish I were wealthy is to anchor yourself more deeply in the state of poverty. It is an admission to the universe and, more importantly, to your own subconscious mind, that wealth is something you do not possess. It is a statement of separation. An assumption, however, is a motion of consciousness that completely bypasses the idea of wanting An assumption is the act of claiming something is true for you right now, even if it is not yet visible to your physical senses. It is a quiet, internal acceptance of a fact. It is not loud, arrogant, or boastful. It is a subtle, yet firm, inner yielding to the feeling of the wish fulfilled. It is the difference between looking at a picture of a warm house from the cold outside and the feeling of walking through the door, taking off your coat, and sinking into a comfortable chair by the fire. One is observation. The other is occupation. The mechanism by which an assumption creates your reality is both impersonal and flawless. Your subconscious mind, the vast, powerful, non-rational part of your being, functions like fertile, indifferent soil. It does not argue, it does not judge, and it does not care what seeds you plant within it. Its sole purpose is to accept what is impressed upon it and to give it form, to objectify it in the world of space and time. An assumption, held with feeling and persistence, is the seed you plant in this fertile ground. When you consistently assume the feeling of being the person you want to be, you are impressing this new self-concept upon your subconscious, and once an idea is truly accepted by the subconscious, it begins to direct all the forces of the universe. Through a series of events you could never consciously devise, to make that assumption a physical fact. This is the process Neville referred to as an assumption hardening into fact. It is like placing a mold into a stream of liquid plaster. The plaster has no choice but to fill the mold and take its shape. Your assumption is the mold. Your life experience is the plaster, persistently holding your assumption in your mind's eye. Feeling its reality is what keeps the mold steady until the plaster sets. Any attempt to force or coerce the outside world is a fool's errand. The real work, the only work, is to construct the perfect mold within. This brings us to the core secret of this entire process: feeling. When Neville Goddard stated that feeling is the secret, he was not necessarily referring to a high-pitched, ecstatic emotion. While joy and gratitude are wonderful feelings to cultivate, the specific feeling he emphasized was the feeling of naturalness. It is the unique texture, the specific mood, the quiet inner atmosphere that would be yours if your desire were already a fact. If you desire financial security, the feeling may not be one of manic excitement, but rather one of profound calm, of relief. It's the feeling of looking at a restaurant menu and ordering what you want, not what you can afford. It's the feeling of effortless generosity. If you desire a loving partnership, the feeling is not the desperate longing for another, but the quiet confidence, the warmth, the sense of companionship and being utterly understood that would be yours if that person were already in your life. This specific, natural feeling is the signature, the energetic fingerprint of your desire. It is this subtle, yet palpable, feeling tone that the subconscious mind recognizes as its instruction. Thinking of your desire keeps it at a distance, but feeling your way into the state of its fulfillment convinces the subconscious that it is a present reality, and it will begin its work to objectify that reality for you. There is a timeless parable that perfectly illustrates this entire process, the parable of the sower. In this story, a sower goes out to sow his seeds. As we reinterpret this story through the lens of the law of assumption, you are the sower, the conscious. Choosing part of your mind is the sower. The seeds are your assumptions. Your every declaration of I am, every thought you consent to, every feeling you entertain, is a seed you are about to plant. The soil, as we've discussed, is your impartial subconscious mind, ready to grow anything. Now, observe what happens to the seeds. Some seeds fall on the wayside, and the birds of the air come and devour them. These are the assumptions that are immediately snatched away by doubt. You might say to yourself, I am successful. But à moment la terre. The birds of your sensory evidencen. Overdue bill. A critical emails swoop in and devour that seed before it even has a chance to sprout. You have allowed your present circumstances to invalidate your new assumption. Other seeds fall on stony ground, where there is not much soil. They spring up quickly, but because they have no root, they wither away under the sun. This represents the assumption held with fleeting enthusiasm but without persistence. You might feel excited about a new goal for a day or two. You might perform an imaginative act and feel a rush of joy. But when the heat of the 3D world bears down on you, when your reality doesn't change overnight, you lose faith. The assumption had no root, no deep conviction, and it withers under the first test. Then there are the seeds that fall among thorns. The thorns grow up and choke the young plants. These thorns are the cares of this world, the constant worry, the anxiety, the endless stream of negative news, the doubtful opinions of friends and family. You may have planted a good seed, an assumption of perfect health, but you allow the thorns of worry, of Googling symptoms, of complaining to others, to grow up around it, choking the life out of your assumption until it cannot possibly bear fruit. But finally, some seeds fall on good soil, and they bring forth a harvest. Some 100-fold, some 60, some 30. The good soil is a subconscious mind that has been made receptive through your acceptance. You plant the seed, the assumption, I am loved, and you don't immediately dig it up to see if it's growing. You accept it as a fact. You water it with your attention and your persistent feeling of being loved. You protect it from the birds of doubt and the thorns of worry. You give it the quiet, confident darkness it needs to germinate. And then, in its own time and in its own way, it will burst forth into your reality as a magnificent harvest. You will find yourself living the experience of being loved. The key is to make your mind good soil, to be selective about the seeds you plant, and to tend to them with unwavering faith until the harvest. So how do we translate this into a daily, practical discipline? It begins with a revolution in your inner language. You must begin to consciously shift your mental posture from one of wanting to one of having. The language of lack, of I want, I need, I hope, must be ruthlessly weeded out of your inner vocabulary. When you catch yourself thinking, I really want that promotion, you must stop. That is a seed of lack. You must gently, but firmly, revisate. Change the statement to one that implies the wish is fulfilled. Isn't it wonderful how my new responsibilities are so fulfilling? Or simply feel the quiet pride and expanded salary of the new position. When the thought I need to find a partner arises, you must catch it and transform it. Assume the feeling of being cherished and adored. Your inner statement might become, I am so grateful for the incredible love that fills my life. This is not about lying to yourself. It is about being loyal to a higher truth, to the reality you have chosen within your own imagination. It is an act of inner fidelity. You are siding with your chosen reality over the shadow world presented by your senses. You are being the faithful sower, planting only the seeds of your fulfilled desires. An assumption, therefore, is the most creative thing in the world. It is the very seed of God, the seed of I am, which, when planted in the fertile ground of your subconscious mind and nourished by the feeling of its own reality, has no choice but to grow into the magnificent tree of your manifested experience. And the most common way we plant these seeds, for good or for ill, is through the ceaseless stream of our own inner talking. If the assumption of a feeling is the seed of creation, then your inner conversations are the soil, the water, and the sunlight that determine which seeds will grow. Deep within you, at this very moment, there is a private theater. On its stage, a play is being performed, a continuous drama with dialogue, emotional highs and lows, and a cast of characters made up of your friends, family, colleagues, and perceived enemies. The lead actor, the protagonist of this play, is you. But here is the secret that changes everything. You are also the playwright. You are writing the script, directing the action, and defining the role of every other character on your stage, all through the power of your inner speech. Most of us are completely unaware of this. We believe we are merely audience members, passively watching a story unfold that is beyond our control. We think our inner talking is simply a harmless commentary on the events of our lives, a way to vent or process our day. But it is not commentary. It is creation. It is the rehearsal for the future. The words you speak silently in the gallery of your own mind are the blueprints from which your tomorrow is built. This inner speech is the most potent form of prayer. We have been taught to think of prayer as a formal act, a moment set aside to speak to a God outside of ourselves. But the true, constant prayer is the conversation you are having with yourself, day in and day out. The subconscious mind, which is the creative aspect of God within you, is always listening. It is a perfect, impartial servant. It does not filter or judge. It simply accepts as a command the words and, more importantly, the feelings that dominate your inner world. When you spend your day in a state of anxious inner chatter, rehearsing arguments, imagining worst-case scenarios, and complaining to an imaginary audience in your head, you are praying. You are praying for more things to be anxious about, for more arguments, for more worst-case scenarios to manifest. Your subconscious mind hears the feeling of conflict, of lack, of victimhood, and it says, Amen. It then diligently sets about arranging the stage of your life to give you more experiences that will match that inner prayer. We are constantly talking ourselves into poverty, into loneliness, into sickness, into failure. And then, when these things appear in our world, we look at them as if they came from nowhere, exclaiming, "See, I knew it," not realizing that we were the prophets of our own doom. Let us make this painfully practical. Consider the subject of money. What is the script that runs in your mind? For many, it sounds something like this: affrontique, whispered conversation with an invisible committee of creditors. Oh no, that bill is due next week. How am I going to cover it? There's just never enough. Everything is getting more expensive. I'll have to tell the kids we can't do that thing they wanted. Why is it so easy for some people and such a struggle for me? I'm always just trying to catch up. This is not just a worry. This is a creative decree. It is a powerful affirmation of lack. It is an assumption of struggle being impressed upon the subconscious mind, over and over again. And the world, being a perfect mirror, and must reflect this state of consciousness back to you as the reality of never enough. Now consider relationships. Think of a person with whom you have a difficult dynamic before you even see them. What is the inner conversation? Are you rehearsing the argument you expect to have? I know they're going to bring that up again. They never listen to what I'm saying. I'm going to have to defend myself. They always make me feel small. By having this inner fight before the event, you are casting that person in the role of the antagonist. You are emotionally preparing yourself for battle. And when you finally meet them, you will unconsciously elicit from them the very behavior you have been rehearsing in your mind. They have no choice but to play the part you have written for them in your play. This principle was brilliantly illustrated by a story Neville Goddard told of one of his students. The man was a successful businessman, but he found his days filled with constant friction. His negotiations were always difficult. His clients were argumentative, and his deals, while often successful in the end, were exhausting to close. He felt like he was always going into battle. He went to Neville for help, and Neville gave him a simple instruction. For 1 week, I want you to do nothing but become aware of your inner conversations. Eavesdrop on yourself. The man did as he was told, and he was horrified by what he discovered. He realized that throughout the day, in the car, at his desk, and before every meeting, he was having furious, Imaginary arguments with his clients. He was anticipating their objections and mentally shouting them down. He was picturing their stubbornness and feeling the frustration of it. He was, in his own mind, a warrior preparing for combat. His inner world was a battlefield, and his outer world was simply reflecting it perfectly. Neville then gave him the second part of the assignment. You must change the script. He said, from now on, before you interact with anyone, you must first have an imaginary conversation with them that is based on the premise that they are agreeable and the outcome is harmonious and mutually beneficial. The man was skeptical, but he was also desperate. So he began the practice. Before a big meeting with a client he knew to be particularly difficult, he sat quietly for a few minutes. He closed his eyes and imagined the man was standing before him. Smiling, he had an inner conversation where he heard the client say, "This is a fantastic proposal. It's exactly what we were looking for. Let's get this done." He imagined shaking the man's hand, and he felt the genuine feeling of relief, satisfaction, and mutual respect. He played this harmonious scene over and over in his mind until it felt real and natural. Then he went to the meeting. To his utter astonishment, the client, who had always been cantankerous, was cooperative and pleasant. He raised none of the objections the businessman had previously feared. The deal was closed within minutes. With a handshake and a smile, the businessman repeated this experiment with all of his interactions, rewriting his inner scripts from conflict to cooperation, from friction to flow. His business and his life were transformed. He did not change the people. He simply changed the role he had assigned them in the play of his mind. This brings us to your first and perhaps most important practical task on this journey. You must become a spy on yourself. For the next 24 to 48 hours, your primary mission is to eavesdrop on the conversations happening in your own mind. Do not try to change them yet. Do not judge them. This is not an exercise in self-criticism. Judgment is just another negative inner conversation. Your role right now is simply one of detached observation, of intelligence gathering. What is the general tone of your inner talking? Is it confident and optimistic? Or is it worried and defeated? Are you constantly replaying old hurts? Or are you anticipating future joys? Are you criticizing yourself and others? Or are you speaking words of encouragement? Who are you talking to in your head? And what are you arguing for? Are you making a case for your own limitations? Are you defending your right to be unhappy? Be ruthlessly honest with yourself, but also be compassionate. Simply notice. You might even keep a small notebook and jot down the recurring themes. Worried about bills. Replayed argument with my sister. Imagine being criticized by my boss. This simple act of awareness is the beginning of all transformation. Because the moment you can observe your inner talking, you have begun to separate yourself from it. You are no longer unconsciously fused with the program. You are the consciousness that is aware of the program. And in that space between the observer and the observed, in that gap, lies your freedom. In that silent space, you have the power to say, "No, I will no longer entertain this conversation. This play has had its run, and it is now closed." You realize that the negative, worried, critical voice is not the real you. It is merely a habit, a recording from the past that has been playing on a loop. By becoming aware of it, you have pressed the pause button. You have taken your hand off the tiller of the ship that was heading for the rocks. Now that you have seen the scripts that have been secretly running your life, the next logical step is to learn how to systematically and deliberately rewrite them. This requires a new discipline, a new way of feeding your mind. It requires putting yourself on a strict mental diet. After the sobering work of eavesdropping on your own mind, you have likely come to a powerful realization. Your mental landscape is not the pristine, well-tended garden you might have hoped for. For most of us, it is a wilderness, overgrown with the weeds of doubt, the thorns of worry, and the invasive species of past resentments, we have allowed these thoughts to grow wild, to choke out the delicate flowers of our desires. And we have done so unconsciously. To reclaim this garden, to consciously cultivate the reality you choose, you must now undertake one of the most practical and powerful disciplines taught by Neville Goddard. You must put yourself on a strict mental diet. Just as a physical diet involves the conscious regulation of the food you put into your body, a mental diet involves the conscious regulation of the thoughts you allow to occupy your mind. The principle is simple. You cannot continue to feast on thoughts of lack and limitation and expect to produce a life of abundance and freedom. What you feed your mind will produce in your experience. The mental diet is the practice of consciously withdrawing your attention from any thought, feeling, or inner conversation that is not in harmony with your wish fulfilled. It is an act of supreme mental hygiene. However, it is absolutely crucial to understand that this is not an exercise in forceful suppression. Many people misunderstand this and turn the mental diet into a brutal inner war, trying to violently crush every negative thought that appears. This approach is not only exhausting, but it is also counterproductive. The more you fight a thought, the more you struggle against it, the more energy and reality you give to it. It is the classic paradox of don't think of a pink elephant. The very act of trying not to think about it ensures that it remains at the forefront of your mind. The mental diet is not about fighting the darkness, it is about turning on the light. It is a gentle, but firm, redirection of your most valuable resource, your attention. The process is one of calm, persistent redirection. It works like this. A negative thought appears, unbidden, from the storehouse of your old habits. Perhaps it is the familiar worry. I'm never going to find a partner. The old way would be to latch onto it, to feel the pang of loneliness, to follow it down a rabbit hole of sad memories and future fears. The new way, the way of the mental diet, is to simply notice it, acknowledge its presence without judgment. As you would acknowledge a cloud passing in the sky, see it for what it is, a ghost, an echo of an old state you are no longer occupying. Do not argue with it. Do not feel guilty for having it. Simply let it be. And then, calmly and deliberately, turn your attention away from it. Withdraw your focus. And in the space you have created, you plant the seed of your new reality. You immediately replace the old thought with a statement that affirms your fulfilled desire. You might say silently to yourself, I am so wonderfully and completely loved. And you allow yourself, for just a moment, to feel the warmth and security of that statement. You may have to do this 50 or 100 times an hour in the beginning. It is exactly like training a puppy. You don't beat the puppy for wandering off. You just gently, patiently, and consistently bring it back to the place you want it to be. Every time you perform this act of redirection, you are weakening an old neural pathway and strengthening a new one. You are recasting your vote for the reality you desire. Let us return to the metaphor of the garden, for it is the most perfect illustration of this process. Your mind is the garden, infinitely fertile and capable of growing whatever you plant. The weeds are the negative thoughts, the doubts, the fears. They require no effort to grow. They are the default state of an untended garden. The flowers and fruits are your fulfilled desires, the assumptions you wish to cultivate. You are the gardener. A wise gardener does not spend his day screaming at the weeds or feeling like a failure for their existence. He knows that weeds are a natural part of an untended space. So, he simply gets to work. Patiently, persistently. He walks through his garden and removes the weeds, one by one. He knows this is not a task he does only once. It is a discipline of maintenance. This act of weeding is your mental diet. Every time you refuse to entertain a negative thought, you are pulling a weed. And, just as importantly, the gardener knows he must also nurture what he does want to grow. He waters his flowers, ensures they get sunlight, and enriches their soil. This is the second part of the diet, consistently returning your attention to your assumption, feeling its reality, and basking in the light of its fulfillment. You cannot just focus on avoiding the negative. You must also be committed to embracing the positive. To make this even more practical, let's compare it to a physical diet and exercise program. If you decide you want to get physically fit, you understand that it requires consistency over time. You don't go to the gym once and then stand in front of the mirror, disappointed that you don't look like a Greek god. You don't eat one healthy meal and then get frustrated when the scale hasn't moved. You accept that you are working against old habits and that results are cumulative. The mental diet is precisely the same. You are working against a lifetime of habitual negative thinking. The momentum of these old thought patterns is strong. Do not be discouraged if your 3D reality does not transform overnight. Your reality is the shadow of your former consciousness. It will take a little time for the new light to cast a new shadow. Every single time you turn away from a worried thought and turn towards your assumption, you have done one more mental repetition. You are building a new muscle. You are being faithful to your unseen reality. Consistency is the magic ingredient. A single day of healthy eating does little, but 365 days of healthy eating creates a new body. A single moment of positive thinking might feel good, but a sustained diet of positive thinking creates a new life. I can hear the objection now. This sounds exhausting. I can't possibly monitor every single thought I have. This is a valid concern. The mind produces thousands of thoughts a day. The key is not to become a frantic, overwhelmed policeman of your mind, but to become a calm and vigilant gatekeeper. To begin, you can set yourself a manageable challenge. Try a strict 7-day mental diet for 7 consecutive days. Make it your primary focus to not allow any negative, unloving, or fearful thought to take up residence in your mind. This does not mean you won't have them. It means that the moment you notice one, you turn it away at the gate. You refuse it entry. You may have to stand at that gate all day, especially on days 1 and 2. But if you find you've spent 10 minutes indulging in a worry, you do not declare the day a failure. You do not give up. You simply start again, right then and there. Okay, I'm back on my diet. This intense, focused period of 7 days can be enough to break the powerful momentum of habitual negativity. It proves to you that you can control your attention. It establishes a new feeling of mental sovereignty. The mental diet, then, is the active, conscious discipline of creating your future in the present moment. It is the practical application of taking responsibility for your own consciousness. It is the work of starving your doubts and feeding your faith. Moment by moment by moment. By controlling the input, you control the output. It is the process of purifying your mind so that your desired assumption has a clean and fertile space in which to grow. Yet, even as you become a master gardener of your present thoughts, you may find that certain stubborn, deep-rooted weeds keep growing back. These are the weeds that are connected to the very foundation of the garden, to events and feelings from your past. These memories and old hurts can act as powerful anchors, constantly pulling you back into the states of consciousness you are trying to leave behind. While the mental diet is the perfect tool for managing the present, we need another, more specialized tool for dealing with the past. We need a way to go back in time and revise the scripts that were written long ago, to heal the old wounds and, in doing so, to change their effect upon our present and our future. We have learned to stand guard at the gate of the present moment through the discipline of a mental diet, refusing entry to thoughts that do not serve us. But what of the past? What of the events, the words, the feelings that have already passed through the gate and taken root in the deep soil of our subconscious mind? We carry our past with us like a heavy chain, a collection of memories, regrets, and hurts that constantly inform our present assumptions and dictate our future. The world tells us the past is fixed, that what is done, a concrete monument to which we are forever tethered. But today, we are going to introduce a concept so radical, so liberating, that it has the power to dissolve those chains entirely. This is the art and the mystery of revision. And it is perhaps the most powerful and practical application of the law of assumption. Revision is the tool by which you become the master of your past, and therefore, the undisputed author of your future. What is revision? It is not denial. It is not a Pollyanna-ish attempt to pretend that unpleasant things didn't happen. Denial is a form of fear, an avoidance of reality. Revision is a form of power, an active changing of reality. Revision is the practice of going back in your imagination to any unpleasant or undesirable event, whether it happened 5 minutes ago or 50 years ago, and rewriting it. You don't just think about how it could have been different. You enter the scene in your mind's eye and reenact it, moment by moment, as you wished it had happened. You change the words that were spoken. You change the actions that were taken. You change the feelings that were felt, until the revised version feels more real and natural to you than the memory of what actually occurred. You are using the creative power of your imagination, the same power that builds the future, to redeem the past. The mechanism behind this seemingly magical process is based on a fundamental truth about your consciousness. Your subconscious mind, the builder of your world, is both timeless and impersonal. It does not know the difference between past, present, and future. To it, there is only the eternal now of your current state of being. Furthermore, and this is the key, it cannot distinguish between an experience that you have physically lived and an experience that you have vividly and sensually imagined. A vividly imagined scene, when impressed upon the subconscious with feeling, is accepted as a real memory. It becomes a cause. Since our entire life is a series of effects flowing from the causal seeds planted in our subconscious, revision allows us to perform a kind of divine alchemy. We can go back to the source, find a toxic, painful memory seed, and replace it with a healthy, life-affirming one. When you change the cause, the effects must change. The future that would have grown out of that old, painful memory is erased, and a new future, one that is in harmony with the revised memory, begins to unfold. It is the ultimate form of forgiveness, not only of others, but of yourself. You are not just pardoning a past event, you are annihilating it and replacing it with something beautiful. Neville Goddard demonstrated the astonishing power of this principle with a story from his own life as a lecturer. He was giving a series of talks in San Francisco, and one particular night, he felt he had performed terribly. The inspiration wasn't there. The words felt hollow, and he left the stage feeling a deep sense of failure and regret. Convinced he had let his audience down, the old way of thinking would have been to go back to his hotel and brood, to criticize himself, to replay the awkward moments over and over, thus deepening the impression of failure upon his subconscious mind and ensuring more of it in the future. But Neville knew better. That night, in his hotel room, he decided to revise the entire event. He lay down, closed his eyes, and brought the scene of the lecture back onto the stage of his mind. But this time, he was not the failing speaker. He was a brilliant, inspired, and powerful orator. He heard himself speaking with clarity and passion. He imagined the audience, not bored or restless, but sitting on the edge of their seats, captivated, their faces filled with understanding and inspiration. He felt the wonderful feeling of a job well done, of having connected deeply with his audience and given them a gift of truth. He persisted in this revised scene, looping it in his mind until the feeling of success and satisfaction completely washed away the initial memory of failure. He fell asleep having successfully rewritten the night. The objective proof of his inner work came a few days later. A woman who had been in the audience on that specific night approached him after another lecture. She told him that his talk on that failed night had been one of the most profound and inspiring speeches she had ever heard. In fact, she said, she had been so moved by it that she had brought several of her friends with her this evening so they could experience his wisdom as well. Her description of the lecture, her memory of it, did not match his original experience of failure at all. It perfectly matched his revised and imaginary version. He had not only changed his own memory and feeling about the event, he had literally reached back in time and altered the experience in the consciousness of another person. This is not a metaphor. This is the power you hold. The world is a mirror to the contents of your own mind. And when you change a memory within, the reflection in the world must, by law, adjust to match. This incredible power can be integrated into your life as a simple, daily practice. Think of it as mental and spiritual hygiene, a way to clean the slate of your day before you drift off to sleep, ensuring that no unwanted seeds are left to germinate in the darkness. The practice is simple. Each night, as you lie in bed, before you fall asleep, just quickly review the events of your day. Scan them in your mind's eye from morning until evening. Don't linger on the pleasant moments. Just enjoy them and move on. Your purpose is to find any moment that was less than ideal. Perhaps it was an awkward conversation, a moment of irritation in traffic, a mistake you made at work, or a piece of news that caused you anxiety. Do not dwell on the feeling of unpleasantness. The moment you identify such a scene, stop. Rewind the tape of your mind to just before that event took place, and then replay it. But this time, rewrite the script. If a coworker was critical, hear them praising your work instead. If you were clumsy and dropped something, see yourself moving with grace and efficiency. If you had a tense phone call with a family member, imagine the conversation was filled with love, laughter, and understanding. Hear their new words. See their new expressions. Most importantly, allow yourself to feel the new feeling. Feel the relief, the joy, the pride, the peace that this new version of the event brings. Loop this revised scene until it feels vivid, real, and natural. Then, you can move on, scanning for the next moment to revise. When you have washed the entire day clean, you can drift off to sleep in a state of perfect peace, knowing you have left only beautiful, life-affirming causes in your subconscious to blossom as your future experiences. This practice is not limited to the small events of the day. It can and should be used to heal the deepest wounds of your past, the childhood experiences of not feeling loved or safe, the painful betrayals, the profound regrets. These are all just memories held in consciousness, and they can be revised. You can go back in your powerful imagination and be the loving parent to your inner child that you never had. You can hear the apology you never received. You can make the different choice you wish you had made. By doing so, you are not erasing your history. You are liberating yourself from its negative effects. You are claiming your power as the creator of your entire lifespan. We have now discovered the tools to take dominion over our inner world. With the mental diet, we are the masters of the present moment. With revision, we are the redeemers of our entire past. We have learned to purify what is and heal what has been. This newfound mastery of our own consciousness now brings us to the most exciting frontier of all, the deliberate, joyful, and conscious creation of a specific future. Now that we know how to clean the house, how do we decorate it? How do we consciously choose and enter a brand new room in the mansion of reality? Having learned to cleanse the present moment with the mental diet and redeem the past through revision, you now stand as a conscious creator at the threshold of your future. The question is no longer how to fix what is broken, but how to build, from scratch, the magnificent reality you desire. To do this, we must understand the concept of states. Your life is not a single, continuous story. It is a series of distinct states of consciousness which you move through, often unconsciously. A state is a collection of beliefs, feelings, assumptions, and inner conversations that, taken together, constitute a way of being. There is a state of poverty, and within it, one believes that money is scarce and feels a constant anxiety. There is a state of wealth, where one believes money is abundant and feels a sense of ease and security. There is a state of being unloved, and a state of being cherished, a state of sickness, and a state of vibrant health. You are, at every moment, occupying a state. The sum total of your life experiences is simply the outward manifestation of the states you have most frequently inhabited. The great secret is that you are not permanently bound to any state. You are an immortal traveler, the free to move from any state to any other state you choose. You do not change a state by fighting it. You change a state by leaving it. You simply decide which state you wish to occupy, and then you learn how to enter it. The most potent and direct method for entering a new state of consciousness is a technique Neville called SATS, which stands for the state akin to sleep. This is the drowsy, hypnotic state you naturally enter every single night just before you drift into unconsciousness. And again for a few moments as you begin to wake. In this tranquil, dreamlike condition, your conscious mind, the analytical gatekeeper that is constantly judging and doubting, begins to relax its guard. Your body is typically immobilized, and your awareness is turned inward. This is the golden moment for creation. The veil between the conscious and subconscious worlds becomes thin and permeable. It is in this state that your subconscious mind is most receptive to new ideas, most open to suggestion, trying to impress the subconscious during the busy hours of the day. When your mind is active and your senses are bombarded with the facts of your current reality, is like trying to plant a seed in concrete. But in SATS, the soil of your deeper mind is soft, fertile, and ready to receive whatever seed you choose to plant within it. This is the sacred time when you can bypass the resistance of the ego and speak directly to the master builder within. To use SATS effectively, you must first construct your imaginal scene with care and precision. This is not daydreaming, it is a focused, creative act. There are specific rules to follow to ensure maximum impact. First, you must know exactly what you want, and you must define it not as a process, but as an end result. If you desire a new home, you do not imagine the process of searching for it or applying for a mortgage. You go to the end. You imagine a scene that implies you already have the home. Second, this scene must be short, simple, and static. It should not be a long, complicated movie. It should be a single, brief moment in time that you can easily loop. Like a mental GIF, a simple handshake, a hug, seeing a specific name on your phone, if feeling a key in your hand. The simplicity is what gives it power and makes it easy to maintain your focus upon it. Third, and this is crucial, you must experience the scene in the first person. You are not watching a movie of yourself being successful. You are the successful person. You must see the world through their eyes, feel with their hands, and hear with their ears. If you are imagining a friend congratulating you, you must see their face from your own perspective. I feel their hand on your shoulder, and hear their voice with your own ears. Finally, you must engage as many senses as you can and, most importantly, infuse the scene with the feeling of its reality. What is the predominant feeling of your wish fulfilled? Is it relief, joy, security, gratitude? This feeling is the fire that forges the image into a fact in the subconscious. A perfect illustration of this technique is the story of a woman who came to Neville with a deep desire to be married. She had no one in her life and saw no prospects. A lesser understanding might have led her to imagine a grand wedding day, with flowers, music, and guests. But Neville knew this was too complex, too much of a process. He guided her to the simple, sensory act that would imply the state of being married. Her instruction was this: every night, as she lay in bed entering SATS, she was to do one thing and one thing only. She was to imagine that a wedding band was on the third finger of her left hand. She was not to see it from a distance, she was to feel it there. She was to clench her fist and feel the pressure of the ring. She was to run the fingers of her other hand over its smooth, metallic surface. She was to feel its solid, comforting weight. This simple, sensory act of feeling the ring was the entire scene. The ring was the symbol, the condensed summary of her entire desire fulfilled. It implied everything: a proposal, a wedding, a loving husband, a shared life. It was a short, first-person, sensory-rich scene that took her directly to the end. The woman followed the instructions faithfully, night after night. She did not plead with the universe or wish for a husband. She simply lay in her bed, entered the drowsy state akin to sleep, and felt the reality of a wedding ring on her finger. She looped this sensation, this simple feeling, over and over, until she fell asleep while wearing her imaginary ring. She was sleeping in the state of a happily married woman. She persisted in this inner act, this sacred ritual, without any evidence in her outer world to support it. Then, in a way she could not have predicted, a man entered her life. Their courtship was natural and beautiful, leading to a proposal and, eventually, a wedding day. And on that day, as her new husband slipped a physical wedding band onto her finger, she felt a sensation she already knew intimately. The outer world had finally caught up to the reality she had first created and consistently occupied within her own imagination. She did not attract a husband, she moved into the state of being a wife. And her world rearranged itself to reflect that change in consciousness, bringing forth the man to play the part of the husband she had already claimed in secret. This, then, is your work. Define your desire. Construct a short, simple, the first-person scene that implies its fulfillment. Tonight, as you get ready for sleep, lie down comfortably and still your body. Close your eyes and breathe deeply, allowing yourself to drift into that wonderful, drowsy state. Then, bring your predetermined scene to mind. Don't strain or force it. Gently, lovingly, loop the scene. If you are feeling the ring, just keep feeling the ring. If you are hearing a friend's voice of congratulations, I just keep hearing those words. Each time your mind wanders, gently bring it back. Your goal is to give this imaginal act all the tones of reality, to feel it so completely that it becomes more real than your present circumstances. The ultimate aim is to fall asleep in the middle of the act, to carry the feeling of the wish fulfilled with you as you cross the threshold into the subconscious. This is the perfect impregnation. You have planted your seed in the most fertile ground. At the most fertile time, you have successfully entered your desired state. But what happens tomorrow morning, when you wake up and the world looks exactly the same? What happens when the ring is not on your finger and the congratulatory call has not come? You have successfully planted the seed, but now you must protect it during its period of incubation. This requires a new understanding, a new discipline, one that allows you to remain loyal to your unseen reality even when the world of your senses screams in protest. This requires an understanding of true faith. You have performed the sacred act in the quiet theater of your mind. During the fertile moments of the state akin to sleep, you have constructed your scene, felt its reality, and planted the seed of your fulfilled desire in the universal subconscious. You have entered the state of your wish fulfilled. You have done the work. But now, you open your eyes. The morning light streams in, and with it comes the flood of the 3D world, the world of your senses. The ring is not on your finger. The bank balance reads the same old number. The person you forgave in your mind is still distant. This is the critical juncture. This is the moment where most journeys to a new reality fail. It is the moment that separates the idle dreamer from the conscious creator. It is the moment that calls for the most misunderstood, yet most essential, of all spiritual qualities, faith. We must begin by completely demolishing the conventional, anemic definition of faith. For many, faith is a fragile hope, a desperate wishing against all odds, a blind belief in something without any evidence. It is seen as a weak and flimsy thing. But this is not the faith that creates worlds. The faith taught by Neville Goddard is a force, a substance, a power. He often quoted the famous passage from the 11th chapter of Hebrews. Faith is the substance of things hoped for, the evidence of things not seen. Let us dissect that profound statement. Faith is not abstract. It is substance. It is the very material from which unseen realities are formed. And faith is not the absence of evidence, it is the evidence. What is the evidence? The evidence is your successful imaginal act. The memory of you feeling the ring on your finger in SATs is the evidence. The memory of hearing your friend's congratulatory voice is the evidence. Your own consciousness, your own imagination, is the ultimate authority. True faith is your unwavering loyalty to the reality you have created within, even when the entire world of your senses denies it. It is the conscious decision to believe the report of your inner, creative self over the report of your outer, reactive senses. When you emerge from your imaginal act, you are like an agent who has returned from a secret mission behind enemy lines. You carry a vital truth, a piece of intelligence that will change the outcome of the war. The enemy territory is your current 3D reality, which is nothing more than the manifestation of your old assumptions. The vital truth you carry is the feeling and knowledge of your wish already fulfilled. Faith is your refusal to be swayed by the propaganda of the enemy. It is your loyalty to the mission. If your loyalty to the truth you carry within you, every time a doubt arises, every time you look at your circumstances and feel a pang of despair, you are being tempted to become a traitor to your own divine self, to betray the reality you have claimed. Faith is the quiet, calm, persistent turning away from the sensory evidence and the turning back towards your inner knowing. It is not a battle. It is a simple, moment-to-moment choice of allegiance. Will you be loyal to the dead past, which is all the 3D world ever is? Or will you be loyal to the living future you have already created in imagination? This leads us to a common and destructive pitfall on this path: the desperate search for signs. After performing an imaginal act, many people begin to scour their reality for proof that it's working. They look for angel numbers, for feathers on the ground, for little synchronicities that they can cling to as evidence that their wish is on its way. This seems harmless, even encouraging. But from the perspective of the law, it is an act of profound unfaithfulness. Consider this. A person who is wealthy does not look for signs that money is coming. They are not excited when they find $1 on the street, because they are already living in the consciousness of abundance. A person who is happily married does not look for signs that their spouse loves them. They live in the confident assumption of that love. The act of looking for a sign is a powerful declaration to your subconscious mind that you do not have your desire. It reinforces the state of waiting, the state of lacking. It is like a man who, after declaring, "I am in London," immediately pulls out a map to see how far away London is. The two acts are contradictory. True faith is the calm confidence that it is already done. When you live in this state, signs will follow you, but you will not need to look for them. They will appear as perfectly natural events on the bridge that leads you to the full manifestation of your desire. The most perfect metaphor for this entire process is that of the gardener and the seed. Your imaginal act in SATs is the planting of the seed. You have chosen a potent, healthy seed, your specific desire, and you have planted it in the most fertile soil imaginable, your subconscious mind. Now, imagine a foolish and impatient gardener. The day after planting his precious seed, he goes out to his garden, armed with a trowel, and carefully digs it up. "Is it growing?" he asks. "Are there any roots?" Seeing nothing, he sighs in disappointment and reburies it. The next day, he does the same thing, and the next. We know instinctively that this gardener's seed will never, ever sprout. his constant disturbance, his demand for immediate, visible proof, is the very thing that destroys his creation. This is precisely what we are doing when we plant our assumption in sats and then spend our waking hours digging it up with worry, doubt, and the constant checking of our 3D reality for results. We are unfaithful gardeners. The wise gardener, however, operates from a place of faith. He plants the seed and walks away in serene confidence. He does not need to see the roots to know that a process has been set in motion. He trusts the unseen law of germination. His work now is not to disturb the seed, but to tend the garden. He waters the soil. This watering is your act of persistence, your periodic, joyful return to the feeling of the wish fulfilled. He protects the ground from weeds. This is your mental diet, your refusal to allow doubt and fear to take root. The wise gardener has faith in the unseen process happening beneath the surface. He knows the seed has its own intelligence and its own appointed hour. He rests in this knowledge. This is faith. It is not a passive waiting, it is an active, confident trust in the law of your own consciousness. Therefore, persistence in your assumption is your faith made visible. Faith is not a feeling that you hope to acquire. It is a discipline that you practice. It is the dogged, unwavering refusal to accept as final any reality other than the one you have claimed. When the world presents you with evidence to the contrary, you calmly say in your mind, "No, that is not the truth. I remember when it was that way." But it is no longer so. When a friend complains about the very problem you have solved in imagination, you revise their words in your mind and hear them telling you of their success. This is active, muscular faith. It is a moment-to-moment commitment. It is not measured by whether you ever fall out of your state, for you are human. And you will, but by how quickly you return to it. Your faithfulness is measured by your persistence. Faith, then, is the bridge of incidents, the span of time that carries you from your inner creative act to its outer, physical manifestation. It is the substance that holds your new reality together in the unseen before it becomes visible to all. It is your unwavering loyalty to the new you that you have become in imagination. To hold this faith, to persist in this assumption, requires you to stand firm and disregard what often seems like the most solid and immutable part of your reality. The actions and reactions of other people. If your world is truly a reflection of your consciousness, then how do the billions of other people, with their own apparent free will, fit into your reality? This discipline of faith, of turning away from the consensus world, forces us to confront one of the most profound and challenging questions of this teaching. It leads us directly to Neville's radical assertion that everyone in your world is simply a projection of you, playing a part that you have assigned. As we stand in the newfound strength of our faith, learning to remain loyal to our unseen reality, we inevitably come face to face with the great conundrum of human existence. Other people. The world appears to be populated by billions of independent souls, each with their own thoughts, desire, and free will. How can it be possible that our own consciousness is the sole creator of our reality when we are constantly interacting with others who seem to be writing their own scripts? The answer to this question is perhaps the most radical, the most challenging, and the most liberating principle in Neville Goddard's entire teaching. It is a concept that, once truly grasped, dissolves all blame, ends all victimhood, and places the scepter of creative power firmly and irrevocably in your hand. The principle is this: everyone is you pushed out. Let that statement penetrate the walls of your conventional thinking. Everyone is you pushed out. This means that every single person in your world, from your most intimate loved one to the stranger who serves you coffee, is not an independent entity operating outside of you. They are, in fact, projections of your own consciousness. They are messengers, actors on your stage, playing a role that you have subconsciously assigned to them. The world is a great mirror, and every person you meet is a specific reflection of a belief, an assumption, or a feeling that exists within you. The behavior of others towards you is never random. It is the perfect, lawful, and unavoidable externalization of what you secretly assume and believe to be true, either about them or about yourself in relation to them. If you secretly feel undervalued, you will encounter people who overlook you. If you assume people are untrustworthy, you will find yourself surrounded by those who betray your trust. If you harbor an inner conversation of argument and conflict, you will meet with argumentative and combative people. They are simply conforming to the character profile you have written for them in the casting office of your own mind. This concept can be difficult to accept because our ego loves to point the finger. It is so much easier to label another person as difficult, unfair, or unkind than it is to turn the searchlight inward and ask, what in me is causing this reflection? What assumption am I holding that is compelling this person to behave this way towards me? But in this question lies your absolute freedom. As long as you believe that others are the cause of your joy or your sorrow, you are their slave. You are a victim of their whims, their moods, and their actions. Your happiness is a fragile thing, dependent on forces outside of your control. But the moment you accept the truth that everyone is you pushed out, you reclaim your power. You realize that to change another person's behavior towards you, you do not try to change them through argument, persuasion, or manipulation. That is like trying to change the reflection by shouting at the mirror. It is futile and exhausting. The only way to change the reflection is to change the source. You must change the assumption you hold within your own consciousness. This brings us to the very heart of personal responsibility. In a world where everyone is you pushed out, there is no one to blame and no one to change but self. Blame becomes an utter absurdity. How can you blame your reflection for the expression on your face? The anger, the resentment, the feeling of being wrong, these are chains that bind you to the very state you wish to escape. The only path to freedom is to drop the blame and pick up the mirror. You must ask, what role have I assigned to this person? And how can I rewrite their script? You do this not by interacting with them in the 3D world, but by changing them in your imagination. You must dare to assume the very best for them. You must begin to have new, loving, inner conversations with them. You must see them in your mind's eye as the noble, kind, and supportive character you wish for them to be. And as you persist in this new assumption, as you remain faithful to this revised version of them, the law will compel them to conform. They must begin to reflect the change that has taken place within you. A powerful story from Neville's work illustrates this perfectly. A woman was deeply troubled by her relationship with her boss. She felt he was constantly critical, dismissive of her ideas, and that he never acknowledged her hard work. Her days were filled with anxiety, and she was contemplating leaving a job she otherwise enjoyed. The conventional response would be to confront him, to file a complaint, or to simply suffer in silence. But she decided to apply this principle. She resolved to completely ignore the evidence of her sensesh's cold behavior and to work on him exclusively in her imagination. Each night, as she prepared for sleep, she would create a scene where her boss was the ideal employer. She didn't imagine him apologizing, for that would imply a past wrong. She went to the end. She constructed an inner conversation where she heard him praise her work. She would hear his voice, clear as day in her mind, saying, "That was an excellent job. Thank you for your hard work." She would feel the genuine warmth of his approval and the feeling of being respected and valued. Day after day, she revised his negative behavior. And night after night, she fell asleep to the sound of his praise. For a while, nothing in her external world changed. Her boss remained as critical as ever. This was the test of her faith. She could have given up, declared the principle a failure, and succumbed to the reality of the 3D world. But she persisted. She remained loyal to her inner, revised reality. Then, slowly, things began to shift. The boss's critical comments became less frequent. One day, After a presentation, he gave her a nod of approval, something he had never done before. A week later, he passed her in the hallway and said, "Good work on that report." The woman was stunned, as she continued her inner work with even greater conviction. His behavior transformed completely. He began to actively seek out her opinions, to praise her contributions in meetings, and to give her more responsibility, all in perfect conformity with the script she had been writing in her imagination. The man himself had not been consciously altered. Rather, the woman had moved into a state of consciousness where she was a valued and respected employee, and her boss, being a part of her reality, was compelled to adapt to this new state and play the part of the appreciative manager. She did not change him, she changed herself. And he, the reflection, changed automatically. This is the power that is now available to you. Think of one person in your life with whom you have a challenging relationship. I invite you now to stop all inner and outer criticism of that person. Stop replaying the hurtful conversations. Stop telling the story of how they have wronged you. Instead, identify your core assumption about them. He is neglectful. She is judgmental. They are unreliable. Now, dare to flip the script. Create a new, loving assumption. He is so attentive and loving. She is so understanding and accepting. They are always there for me. Begin to have inner conversations from this new premise. Hear them saying the kind words you long to hear. See them behaving in the supportive way you desire. Do this consistently, and you will perform a miracle in your own life. You will prove to yourself that your world is indeed a mirror, and that you have the power to make that mirror reflect a heaven of your own choosing. This ultimate realization that we are the sole creative power in our reality, that we can mold our human interactions and create harmony where there was once discord, naturally leads us to a tantalizing question. If we can apply this principle to people, can we apply it to the seemingly impersonal forces of life, such as wealth and abundance? If we can assume love from another, can we assume prosperity from the world? Having established the profound truth that everyone in your world is a projection of your own consciousness, a reflection of the roles you have assigned them, we now turn this powerful lens upon one of the most charged and misunderstood subjects in human experience: wealth. Just as we hold deep-seated assumptions about people, we harbor a complex and often contradictory set of beliefs about money. We have been taught to see wealth as an external thing, a pile of paper or a number on a screen that we must chase, struggle for, and hoard. We believe it exists outside of us, and our life is a desperate race to acquire a small piece of it. But this is a profound misunderstanding of its nature. Wealth is not an external possession. It is an internal state of consciousness. Your bank account is merely a mirror reflecting the state of your financial mind. To change your finances, you do not chase money, you change the consciousness that produces it. Your consciousness is your only true currency. Before you can move into the state of wealth, you must first take an honest inventory of the state you currently occupy. You must unearth the foundational assumptions of lack that you have accepted as truth. For many, these beliefs are so deeply ingrained they operate like the air they breathe, invisible, yet ever-present. One of the most common is the idea that money is hard to get. This assumption, repeated silently and unconsciously throughout the day, is a creative prayer for struggle. It commands your subconscious to create a reality where opportunities are scarce, where every dollar must be earned through toil and sacrifice. Another pervasive assumption is a feeling of unworthiness. The subtle belief that I am just not the kind of person who is wealthy. This creates a self-concept that is allergic to abundance. Even if money does come, a person in this state will quickly find a way to get rid of it, through unexpected expenses or poor decisions, because it doesn't match their inner identity. Furthermore, many of us harbor a secret animosity towards wealth itself. We have been fed stories that money is the root of all evil or that rich people are greedy and corrupt, whether we are conscious of it or not. If we hold these beliefs, We create an impossible inner conflict. You cannot become that which you despise. To your subconscious mind, your desire for wealth is a desire to become evil or corrupt. It will, in its effort to protect you, sabotage your every attempt at financial success. You must make peace with money. You must see it not as a corrupting influence, but as a neutral energy, a wonderful and useful servant that allows for greater freedom, greater generosity, and greater expression of life. You must cleanse your mind of these limiting beliefs. They are the weeds in your financial garden, and as long as they remain, no seed of prosperity can fully grow. The greatest mistake people make when trying to change their financial reality is obsessing over the how. They ask, how will the money come? Should I get a new job, start a business, invest in stocks? The how is the domain of the infinitely wise subconscious mind, the creative power of God. The hows are the ways of the universe, and they are not your concern. Your conscious mind, with its limited perspective, could never devise the simple, elegant, and often surprising path that the subconscious will create. Your one and only job is to define the what. You must become crystal clear on the end result, on the feeling of the wish fulfilled. What would it feel like if you were already financially secure? The feeling would not be one of frantic scheming. It would be a feeling of ease, of relief, of freedom, of security. It would be the quiet confidence to walk into a store and buy what you need without anxiety. It would be the peace of mind that comes from knowing all your needs are met. Now and in the future, these feelings ease, relief, security, these are your targets. This is the state you must learn to occupy. To enter this state, you must begin to tell yourself a new story about money. You must change your inner conversations from a script of lack to a script of abundance. When a bill arrives in the mail, instead of the old, habitual inner groan of "oh no, another expense," you must practice a new response. You can use the powerful phrase, "Isn't it wonderful?" You hold the bill and say silently, "Isn't it wonderful that I have more than enough to pay this with ease?" You are not lying to yourself. You are giving a command to your subconscious. You are declaring your new reality into existence. Another powerful practice is to cultivate the feeling of generosity in your imagination. Lack consciousness is fundamentally selfish. It is a state of contraction, of holding on tightly to what little one has. The consciousness of wealth is expansive and generous. In your imagination, feel the joy of tipping extravagantly. Imagine writing a large, joyful check to a charity you believe in. Feel the pleasure of buying a perfect, unexpected gift for someone you love. By feeling the reality of giving from a place of overflow, you are powerfully impressing the state of abundance upon your mind. The ultimate technique, as always, is to use sats to sleep in the state of your wish fulfilled. You can construct a simple scene that implies financial success. Perhaps you see the final number on your bank statement, a number that gives you a feeling of absolute security. See it clearly in your mind's eye. Or perhaps you feel the profound sense of relief that comes from being completely debt-free. Don't imagine the process of paying off debt. Just sink into the glorious, peaceful feeling of it being done. A powerful story illustrates this perfectly. A man was facing severe financial difficulties. His business was failing. Creditors were calling, and he was filled with despair. He had been working himself to the bone in the external world to no avail. He decided he had nothing to lose by trying this principle with absolute commitment. He determined that his desire was not just to pay his bills, but to be a resounding success in his field. So, every night, he ignored the threatening letters and the silence of his phone. He lay in bed and entered the state akin to sleep. In his imagination, he did not see money raining down from the sky. He simply felt the feeling of being a successful man. He felt the pride, the satisfaction. He had an inner conversation with his wife where he told her, "We did it. We are a huge success." He heard her congratulate him. He felt the quiet, profound confidence that comes from accomplishment. He did not know how his situation could possibly turn around. He had no plan. He simply dedicated himself to sleeping every single night in the feeling of being a successful, prosperous man. He persisted in this inner reality, despite the complete lack of evidence in his outer world. Then, things began to happen. An old business acquaintance, whom he hadn't spoken to in years, called him out of the blue with a strange business proposal. It was an idea that seemed to perfectly match a unique skill set he possessed. Simultaneously, a small, forgotten investment he had made years ago suddenly paid off, providing just enough capital to get the new venture started. A series of such coincidences, each one unforeseen and unpredictable, created a bridge of incidents that led him out of debt and into a level of success far beyond what he had even dared to hope for. The how had been delivered by a power far greater than his own conscious mind, but only after he had remained faithful to the what, the state of being a success. Wealth, therefore, is not a thing you acquire. It is a state of consciousness you occupy. It is the result of your habitual inner conversations and assumptions about money, security, and yourself. By consciously identifying and discarding your beliefs in lack, and by persistently assuming the feeling of abundance, ease, and security, you command your subconscious mind to build a new financial reality for you. You stop chasing the reflection in the mirror and you focus on changing the face that is casting the reflection. Having now explored the application of this law to our relationships with others and to our material well-being, we turn our attention to another of life's great pursuits, one that drives so much of human endeavor, the desire for love, for romantic partnership, and for deep, harmonious connection. How do we use this same principle to write the love story we truly desire to live? Of all the desires that stir the human heart, the quest for love is perhaps the most universal. We seek connection, companionship, and the profound feeling of being truly seen and cherished by another. We read books, watch films, and listen to songs, all centered around this epic search for a soulmate, for our other half. The prevailing story we are told is that love is something you must find, a treasure hidden somewhere in the vast, external world. We are taught to make ourselves more attractive, to learn dating strategies, to be in the right place at the right time, all in the hopes of attracting this elusive prize. But the law of assumption turns this entire paradigm on its head. Love is not something you find. It is something you are. The love you experience from others is, and can only ever be, a direct mirror of the state of consciousness you occupy regarding love. The perfect partner you seek is, in reality, a reflection of you pushed out. To truly grasp this, we must apply the principle that everyone is you pushed out directly to the realm of romance. If you are experiencing loneliness, it is because you are dwelling in the state of being lonely. Your inner conversations are likely centered on lack, on the absence of a partner, on the fear of being alone forever. If you are in a relationship that is filled with conflict and misunderstanding, it is because you are holding your partner in a state of conflict within your own mind, constantly replaying their faults and having imaginary arguments with them. The distant, unavailable person you long for is simply playing the part of unavailable because you are occupying a state of unrequited love, a state of wanting what you cannot have. In all these cases, the cause is not external. The cause is the set of assumptions, beliefs, and inner conversations you are holding as true. To change your love story, you must first change the author, and that author is you. You must stop trying to find the perfect person and start embodying the state of being the person who is already perfectly loved. What does it mean to inhabit the state of being loved? It is a radical inner shift. It means you stop focusing on the absence of a partner and start cultivating within yourself the feelings you would have if they were already by your side. What would it feel like right now to be completely cherished, adored, and understood? It would feel like security. It would feel like confidence. It would feel like a deep, inner calm and a quiet joy. These are the feelings you must begin to assume as your own. Independent of any external validation, you must change your inner conversations. You must stop the prayer of lack. Why am I always single? When will I find someone? And begin to speak the prayer of fulfillment. You can walk through your day with a secret smile, carrying the feeling that you are the most beloved person in the world. You can have inner conversations from this new premise. Isn't it wonderful how my partner and I support each other? I feel so safe and cherished in my relationship. You are not lying to yourself. You are being faithful to a reality that you are choosing to create. You are moving into the state of being loved. And since the world is a mirror, it must, by law, reflect this state back to you. For those already in a relationship but experiencing difficulty, this principle is your key to transformation. The temptation is always to try and change the other person through criticism, pleading, or demons. This is arguing with the mirror. It will only ever create more resistance and more of the behavior you dislike. Your work is entirely internal. You must put your partner on a strict mental diet. You must withdraw your attention from their perceived flaws and begin to see them in your imagination as the ideal partner you desire them to be. Are they inattentive? In your mind, begin to see them as incredibly attentive. Have inner conversations where you hear them listening deeply and responding with care. Are they unromantic? In your mind, imagine them performing wonderfully romantic gestures. Feel the thrill and the love from these imagined acts. Revise every negative interaction. If you have an argument later that day, in the quiet of your own mind, rewrite the scene. Hear loving words instead of angry ones. Feel a hug instead of a cold shoulder. By persisting in seeing and feeling only the best from your partner in your imagination, you are rewriting their script. You are casting them in the noble role of your perfect partner, and they will be compelled to live up to the part you have assigned. Now, what about manifesting a relationship with a specific person? This is a topic of great interest, and according to the law, it is entirely possible for that specific person is also you pushed out. However, the focus must be precise. It is not about controlling another person's free will in an objective sense. It is about moving into a state of consciousness where you are already in a loving, harmonious, and committed relationship with them. The work is the same. You must stop seeing them as separate and distant from you. In your imagination, you must bring them close. Have the beautiful, loving, inner conversations you long to have with them in person. Feel the feeling of holding their hand. Assume the quiet, natural, and joyful feeling of being their partner. The key here is to move out of the state of desperate longing and into the state of calm. Confident, knowing. You are not chasing them. You are simply accepting, within your own consciousness, that you are already together. As you persist in this state, your world will rearrange itself to reflect it. For those who are not focused on a specific person but desire to attract a new, ideal partner, the process is one of defining the feeling, not the face. This is where we can expand upon the beautiful story of the woman who manifested her husband by feeling the wedding ring on her finger. That act was the condensed symbol of her desire. But the work went deeper. To make that ring feel real, she had to inhabit the entire state of being a cherished wife. She had to cultivate the feeling of companionship. In her imagination, she would feel the quiet comfort of having someone else in her home. She would imagine sharing a joke over dinner. She would feel the simple, profound peace of not being alone. She was building the emotional house of a loving relationship. Once the house was fully built and occupied in her imagination, the perfect person, the person who matched the feeling of that house, had to show up to become its other occupant. So, your work is to ask yourself, what are the core feelings you desire from a partnership? Is it security, laughter, passion, intellectual connection, support? Define these feelings and then I begin to assume you are feeling them now. Cultivate the state of being secure, joyful, and supported. You become a magnet for a person who resonates with and reflects that state back to you. Love, then, like all things in life, is an inside job. It is not a prize to be won, but a state of being to be occupied. You are the author and director of your own love story. And you write the script with your assumptions and your inner conversations, by daring to assume that you are already worthy, cherished, and deeply loved, and by seeing everyone in your world, especially your romantic partners, as a reflection of your own loving consciousness. You unlock the power to create a relationship that truly fulfills the deepest desires of your heart. Having explored how to apply this profound law to our relationships with others, to our financial well-being, and to our quest for love, we must now address a common and often frustrating element that weaves through all of these creative endeavors: the element of time. We plant our imaginal seed. We assume our wish fulfilled. And then we wait. This interval, this seeming delay between our inner act and its outer manifestation, can be a breeding ground for doubt and fear. How do we navigate this waiting period with grace and confidence? How do we truly rest in the faith that it is done? This leads us to the crucial understanding of what Neville called the Sabbath, having mastered the art of entering a new state of consciousness, of planting the seed of your desire in the fertile ground of your subconscious mind. We arrive at the most delicate and often the most difficult phase of creation, the waiting period, this interval of time. The span between your successful imaginal act and its physical manifestation is where faith is truly tested. It is a sacred gestation period. But for many, it becomes a valley of doubt. You have felt the ring on your finger. You have heard the words of congratulations. But you wake up morning after morning, and the 3D world remains stubbornly unchanged. It is in this gap that anxiety begins to creep in. Did I do it right? Is it working? Why is it taking so long? This inner questioning, this anxious need for reassurance, is the spiritual equivalent of digging up the seed to see if it has sprouted, and it is the primary reason why so many manifestations fail to reach maturity. The divine antidote to this anxiety, the state that you must learn to cultivate after every creative act, is what Neville Goddard called the Sabbath in the biblical story of creation. After 6 days of creative work, God rested on the 7th day. Neville taught that this is not an ancient story about a man in the sky, but a profound psychological drama that unfolds within our own consciousness. The 6 days of work represent the creative process of imagination, the labor of defining your desire and constructing your imaginal scene. The 7th day, the Sabbath, is not simply a day of the week. It is a state of consciousness. It is a state of rest, of stillness, and of profound inner peace that comes from the unshakable knowledge that the creative act is finished. It is the feeling of, it is done. When you have truly succeeded in your imaginal act, when you have fully occupied the state of your wish fulfilled, a deep calm settles over you. The most telling sign that you have entered the Sabbath is that you no longer feel the intense hunger for your desire. The desperate longing vanishes, replaced by a quiet, confident satisfaction. You no longer want it, because you have the deep inner feeling that you already have it. It is now a part of your being. This is the Sabbath rest, and it is a crucial and necessary stage of the creative process. This Sabbath rest allows the interval of time to do its work. This interval is not a void, it is a dynamic, purposeful period of unfolding that Neville called the bridge of incidents. Once your subconscious mind has accepted your assumption as a fact, it begins to move the world in ways you could not possibly conceive to bring it into being. It will influence the actions of others, arrange coincidental meetings, open unexpected doors, and sometimes even create seeming setbacks. All of which are necessary steps on the bridge that leads from your inner assumption to your outer reality. Your conscious, rational mind cannot see the entire bridge. It can only see the single plank directly in front of it. To try and figure out the how or to map out the entire bridge is not only impossible, it is a destructive interference with a power that is infinitely wiser than you are. Your job is not to build the bridge, but simply to walk it with faith, trusting that every step, whether it feels like progress or not, is a necessary part of the divine plan your own deeper self has set in motion. To make this concept perfectly clear, let us use a modern metaphor. Ordering a product online. The process is a perfect parallel to the law of assumption. First, you browse the website, consciously deciding exactly what you want. This is you defining your desire. You add it to your cart, enter your payment and shipping information, and then you perform the decisive act. You click the Place Order button. This click is your successful imaginal act in SATS. It is the moment you commit, the moment you impress your desire upon the universal system. Now, what do you do in the moments after you click that button? This is the crucial part. You enter the Sabbath. You do not immediately call the company to ask, "Did you get my order? Are you sure?" You do not stand by your front door for the next 5 days, wringing your hands in anxiety. You simply go about your life with a calm, confident knowing that your package is on its way. You have the confirmation, email the memory of your successful image. You have entered the Sabbath, that sacred state of mental rest, knowing that your creative act is finished and your desire is already a fact in the deeper reality of your imagination. You have committed to the faith that an unseen bridge of incidents is now unfolding to bring your assumption into your world. But as you walk this bridge, you will be met with the greatest of all tests, the persistent illusion of the 3D world. This world, perceived by your 5 senses, will often present you with evidence that directly contradicts your new reality. The bank account will show a low balance. The person you have forgiven in your mind will act coldly. The doctor's report will remain unchanged. This is the moment of truth. This is where you must learn the art of resisting the tyranny of the senses and master the discipline of living in the end. First, we must redefine what the 3D world actually is. It is not the solid, objective, causal reality we have been taught to believe it is. The 3D world is a world of shadows. It is an echo, a delayed reflection of your past consciousness. Everything you see, to hear, touch, taste, and smell right now is the result of beliefs and assumptions that you held in the past, which have now hardened into fact. Therefore, to treat the current 3D world as the ultimate reality is to be a slave to your past. It is like driving a car by looking only in the rearview mirror. The true, creative, causal reality is the world of your imagination. The 4D world, that is where your future is being forged. To live in the end means to give your primary loyalty, your primary attention, and your primary emotional investment to this inner, causal world, regardless of the shadows being cast in the outer world. Living in the end is not an act of delusion or denial. It is not about pretending you don't see the bill in your hand. It is a disciplined act of interpretation and allegiance. It means that when you see the bill, you do not react from your old state of lack. You see it, but you feel from your new state of abundance. You know that this bill is simply a part of the old world that is now fading away. You have already assumed the state of wealth. And so this bill is already handled in the real, creative world of your imagination. It is the difference between a person watching a scary movie for the first time, who jumps and screams in fear, and a person watching it for the second time, who can remain calm during the frightening scenes because they know the happy ending. Living in the end is living your life as though you are watching it for the second time, with the calm, a certain knowledge of your desired outcome. This requires practical strategies for when the 3D world presents you with seemingly negative evidence. The first strategy is to reframe every event as part of the bridge of incidents. When something happens that seems to be a setback, a deal falls through, an unexpected expense arises, you must resist the urge to panic. Instead, you must calmly and deliberately say to yourself, "This is part of the bridge. I may not understand how, but this is a necessary step leading me to my destination. This neutralizes the emotional charge of the event. It transforms it from a roadblock into a paving stone on your path. The second strategy is a powerful form of mental alchemy, Neville called the I remember when technique. When you are faced with an old, unwanted reality, you mentally look at it and say, I remember when that used to be a problem. Or I remember when my relationship was like that. This simple linguistic trick does something profound. It pushes the unwanted circumstance into the past, where it belongs. It affirms that you have already moved on, that you are now in a new state where that issue is resolved. The ultimate strategy, however, is a cultivated indifference. It is the refusal to give your creative energy and emotional reaction to the shadows. You see the unwanted circumstance. You acknowledge its appearance without fear or anger, and you immediately turn your attention back to your inner reality, back to the feeling of the wish fulfilled. You treat the negative evidence of the 3D world as you would treat television static or junk mailers, meaningless noise that has no bearing on the truth. Your emotional reactions are the fuel that sustains a reality. By refusing to react emotionally to the old state, you starve it of energy, and it must, by law, fade from your world. The key is to understand that reacting to the 3D world with fear, anger, or despair is a catastrophic act of unfaithfulness. It is you, the creator, bowing down to your own old creation. It is the act of dropping out of your new state of the wish fulfilled and jumping right back into the old state of lack. And if you return to the old state, you will only perpetuate and recreate more of the old reality. Consider the story of an aspiring actor living in a small, cramped apartment, whose physical reality consists of a pile of rejection letters. The 3D world is screaming at him that he is a failure. The old way of thinking would be to despair, to believe the letters, and to give up. But this actor is a master of living in the end. He sees the rejection letters, but he knows they are relics from his old state of being an aspiring actor. His real work begins when the lights go out. Every night, he ignores the peeling paint on his walls and the sirens outside his window. He enters the state of being a celebrated, successful star. In his imagination, he feels the warmth of the stage lights. He hears the roar of a standing ovation. He sees his name in big, bold letters on a theater marquee. He feels the deep satisfaction and security of being a respected artist whose talent is in high demand. He falls asleep night after night in this state. During the day, he continues to go to auditions, but he goes with a different energy. He is not a desperate man begging for a job. He is a star, calmly attending to the bridge of incidents that leads to his next project. His inner reality is so solid, so real to him, that the rejections of the 3D world feel like a strange, irrelevant dream. And because he persists in this inner state, his 3D world eventually has no choice but to surrender. It must remold itself around his sustained assumption. The lucky break comes. The perfect role appears, and the world of the senses finally catches up to the reality he has been faithfully inhabiting all along. This is the discipline you must cultivate. It is a moment-to-moment choice. Will you believe the report of your senses, which can only show you the past? Or will you believe the report of your soul, your imagination, which shows you the future you have already created? You must starve the facts and feed the dream. You must be willing to walk by faith, not by sight, trusting that the feeling you have cultivated within is the only true substance. This sustained act of living from the end, of being loyal to your unseen reality, is more than just a technique for getting things. It is a process that fundamentally changes who you are. You are no longer the person who is trying to become wealthy, loved, or healthy. Through your persistence, you have psychologically become that person. This realization that the ultimate goal is not to change a circumstance, but to transform your own being, leads us to the very bedrock of all creation. the foundation upon which your entire world is built. Your concept of yourself. We have journeyed through the powerful techniques of this law, learning to manage our thoughts, revise our past, and enter new states of being to achieve our specific desires. We have learned to manifest health, wealth, and love. But now, we must go deeper, to the very foundation of reality, to the central cause of every single circumstance and event in your entire life. We are moving beyond changing a single aspect of your life to changing the totality of your life in one fell swoop. We are moving to the subject of your self-concept. Your concept of yourself is the master key, the secret cause of all phenomena. Who you believe yourself to be is the single most important discovery you will ever make. For, as you believe yourself to be, so your world is. What is this self-concept? It is the sum total of every assumption you hold to be true about yourself. It is the collection of all your inner I am statements, most of which operate unconsciously. I am smart. I am awkward. I am unlucky. I am a survivor. I am always a little late. I am not good at math. I am the kind of person people take advantage of. I am worthy. I am forgotten. These beliefs, gathered and accepted over a lifetime, fuse together to form your identity, your mask, your persona. This self-concept acts as the central hub, the invisible magnetic core from which your entire world is projected. The circumstances of your life are not random, they are a perfect, unerring reflection of your own self-concept. Your world is simply your self-concept. Objectified, it is the house you live in, decorated down to the smallest detail by the blueprint of who you believe you are. Look at your life honestly. The persistent, recurring patterns are not bad luck or the fault of others. They are the faithful echoes of your self-concept. If you have a deep-seated belief that I always have to struggle, you will find that, even when good things come, they are preceded by or followed by a period of intense struggle. The world is simply obeying your deepest command about yourself. If your self-concept is, I am someone who is always overlooked, you will find that at work, in your family, and in your social circles. Your contributions are consistently ignored, no matter how brilliant they may be. This is not a punishment, it is a law. Your outer world must conform to your inner identity. It has no choice. The world does not shape you, it reveals you. This is why changing a single assumption can bring you a specific result. But changing your self-concept will change your entire world. Let us say your self-concept is one of I am poor, but you use the techniques we have discussed to manifest $10,000. You can certainly do it. You can assume the state of having that money until it appears. But this is like buying a beautiful, expensive, antique vase and placing it in a rundown, dilapidated house. The vase doesn't match the rest of the decor, because your fundamental self-concept of being poor has not changed. You will, by law, find a way to get rid of that vase. An unexpected emergency will arise that costs exactly $10,000. You will make a poor investment. You will lose it. The world will conspire to bring your circumstances back into alignment with your core identity. But imagine, instead, that you work on changing your self-concept itself. You ignore the current numbers in your bank account and persist in the assumption I am wealthy. I am prosperous. I am financially secure. You change the very blueprint of the house. When you do this, not only does the $10,000 appear, but it is followed by more and more. Because now abundance and security are the natural furnishings for the new and beautiful home of your new self-concept. You do not just change one event, you change the entire pattern of your life. The most beautiful allegory for this transformation is the timeless story of the ugly duckling. The story is a profound drama of a changing self-concept. The little bird's suffering was not truly caused by the other animals pecking at him. Their cruel behavior was merely an effect, a reflection. The root cause of his misery was his own self-concept. He looked at his reflection in the water, saw that he was different from the ducks around him. And he accepted the belief, I am ugly, I am an outcast, I do not belong, because this was his deep, inner truth about himself. His world had to reflect it. The other animals were simply playing the parts he had assigned them. The parts of tormentors who would validate his belief in his own ugliness. His world was a perfect mirror of his identity. The magical transformation in the story did not occur when the other animals had a change of heart. It did not happen because of any external event. The change was entirely internal. It happened the moment the duckling saw his true reflection in the water. Not as an ugly duck, but as a graceful, beautiful swan. In that moment, his self-concept was shattered and reborn. The realization was not, one day I will become a swan. It was the thunderous, liberating revelation. I am a swan, and I have been a swan all along. The moment his identity shifted, his entire world was transformed. He was no longer an outcast. He was reunited with his true family. He was admired for the very qualities that had once made him feel alien. The world simply rearranged itself to conform to his new, true concept of himself. This is the journey you must take. You must discover your own ugly duckling beliefs and transform them by realizing the swan you have been all along. The first step is discovery. Look at the stubborn, recurring patterns in your life, as if they were clues in a mystery. What do they tell you about who you believe you are? If you consistently find yourself in relationships where you are not prioritized, what does this say about your self-concept regarding your own worthiness of love? If you constantly find yourself in jobs where you are underpaid, what does this tell you about your beliefs about your own value? Listen to your habitual inner conversations. They are the voice of your self-concept. Once you have identified the old, limiting identity, you must define the new one. Who do you desire to be? And do not think merely in terms of having things. Think in terms of being. Do you want to be confident, to be secure, to be charismatic and radiant, to be a creative genius, to be profoundly loved? Define this new I am with clarity. Then, you must use the tools you have learned to occupy this new identity. Your inner conversations must now stem from this new self-concept. The one who is confident does not have inner conversations filled with self-doubt. They speak to themselves with encouragement and self-assurance. Your imaginal acts and sats should now be geared towards implying this new identity is true. If you desire to be confident, you might imagine a scene where you are speaking in public, and the audience is hanging on your every word. Their faces filled with respect and admiration. You would feel the feeling of calm, powerful self-possession. You would persist in this until it becomes your natural way of being. Changing your self-concept is the most profound and permanent creative act you can possibly undertake. It is the journey from being a pawn in your life story to becoming its conscious and heroic author. This deep, internal work of reshaping your core identity is the ultimate purpose of this teaching. However, as we undertake this profound transformation, we can sometimes feel hopelessly stuck in the old identity, trapped by the sheer gravitational pull of habit. How, then, do we consciously and deliberately let go of an old state so that we can finally be free to fully inhabit the new one? This brings us to the crucial and often overlooked art of dropping a state as we journey deeper into the mechanics of creation, building our new reality through the conscious use of our imagination. We may encounter a frustrating phenomenon. We do everything right, we perform our imaginal acts. We persist in the feeling, and yet we feel stuck. It can feel as though we are trying to run forward while being tethered to a post by a thick, unyielding rope. We try to assume the state of wealth, but the feeling of lack clings to us. We try to assume the state of being loved, but the ghost of loneliness haunts our every thought. This feeling of being stuck is almost always a sign that we have not fully dropped the old state of consciousness. We are trying to move into a new, beautiful home while still carrying all the heavy, broken furniture from the old one. Before we can truly and permanently occupy a new state, we must learn the art of letting go of the old one. And the most powerful tool for this release is a radical reinterpretation of forgiveness. In our conventional understanding, forgiveness is often seen as a heavy moral duty, a difficult pardon that we grant to someone who has wronged us. It is often confused with condoning their behavior, with saying, "What you did was okay." Because of this misunderstanding, we resist it. Why should I forgive them, we ask. They don't deserve it. But from the perspective of the law of assumption, forgiveness has nothing to do with the other person. It is not a moral gift you give to them, it is a pragmatic, psychological key you use to unlock your own prison cell. Holding on to anger, resentment, blame, or a sense of victimhood is the act of welding yourself to the very person and situation you wish to escape. When you hold a grudge, you are in a constant inner conversation with that person. You are keeping the painful memory alive, reenacting the scene of your hurt over and over again on the stage of your mind. By doing so, you are perpetually keeping yourself in the state of consciousness of the one who was wronged. And as long as you occupy that state, you are commanding your subconscious mind to create more circumstances that match it. More situations where you will feel wronged and victimized. Your resentment does not punish the other person. It perpetuates your own suffering. True forgiveness, then, is the art of dropping a state. It is the recognition that when you hold someone in the prison of your anger, you are the one standing guard. To forgive is to drop the story, to release the other person from the negative role you have assigned them in your play. Since everyone is you pushed out, as long as you see someone as the one who betrayed me, you are forcing them to remain that character in your reality. And by extension, you must remain the character of the betrayed. It is a toxic, symbiotic bond held together by negative imagination. To break this bond, you must change their script. In your imagination, you must set them free. This does not mean you have to call them or interact with them in the 3D world. The work is entirely internal. It is the act of seeing that person in your mind's eye and, instead of feeling the old bitterness, you revise their reality. You see them happy. You see them successful. You see them at peace, in a context that has nothing to do with you. You wish them well, not as a favor to them, but as a declaration of your own freedom. The moment you release them from the state of being your adversary, you automatically release yourself from the state of being their victim. You have dropped the old state, and now you are free to fully move into a new one. This is powerfully illustrated by the story of a man who had been ruthlessly cheated out of a successful business by a partner he had trusted completely. His life became consumed by a burning anger and an obsessive desire for justice and revenge. He spent his days in bitter inner conversations, replaying the betrayal, and his nights dreaming of his former partner's ruin. This all-consuming rage kept him completely stuck. He was unable to focus. His creativity dried up, and new opportunities eluded him, because his entire consciousness was trapped in the past. In the state of the betrayed man, when he was introduced to this principle of forgiveness, his first reaction was outrage. Forgive him. Never. He destroyed my life. But as his suffering continued, he eventually realized that his hatred was a poison. He was drinking, hoping the other man would die. It was only destroying him. With great difficulty, he began the work. He sat in the quiet and brought his former partner's face to mind. He fought back the urge to curse him and instead began to build a new scene. He imagined the man in a different city, running a different, successful business. He imagined the man looking happy and prosperous. He did not condone the past betrayal, but he consciously chose to release the man from that role in his mind. He cut the energetic cord of resentment. He would say to himself, "I release you. I let you go. I wish you well." He persisted in this inner act, and a profound change began to occur. The fire of his anger started to cool, replaced by a strange sense of peace. The chains of resentment grew weak and then fell away. By dropping the state of being a victim, he was finally free. His mind, no longer consumed with the past, became clear and creative again. New ideas for a new business began to flow to him. He met new people who were trustworthy and supportive. He went on to build a new enterprise that was far more successful than the one he had lost. His act of forgiveness was the key that had unlocked the door to his own future. This is a discipline you can apply right now. Is there a person or a situation in your life that still carries a negative emotional charge? A past hurt? A lingering resentment? Recognize that this is a state you are still carrying. A heavy piece of furniture you are dragging into every new room you try to enter. The act of forgiveness is the act of dropping it at the door. Here is how you can practice it. Find a quiet moment. Close your eyes and bring the person or situation to mind. Acknowledge the pain you felt, but then make a conscious decision to not dwell there. Instead, build a new imaginal scene. If it is a person, see them truly happy, healthy, and successful. Construct a short mental movie of them thriving. As you watch this scene, I feel the energetic connection of resentment between you dissolving. Silently or aloud, say, I release you. I forgive you, and I am free of you. Feel the truth of those words. Understand that this act is a profound mental and emotional cleansing for you. You are washing your own consciousness clean of a toxic memory, creating a pure, empty space into which you can now build your desired reality. Dropping a state through forgiveness is the ultimate act of self-love and self-liberation. It is the realization that you cannot move forward while looking backward. It is the spiritual equivalent of decluttering your home, getting rid of all the old, broken things to make way for the new and beautiful. It is the necessary preparation for any great creative act. We have now learned how to purify our minds, manage our present, redeem our past, and now, how to consciously release the old states that no longer serve us. This comprehensive toolkit gives us power over our emotional, relational, and financial worlds. Let us now turn our attention to the most intimate reality we know. The very vessel through which we experience life, our physical body. Can we apply these same laws of consciousness to assume perfect health and command the cells of our body to reflect a state of vibrant well-being? Of all the realities we inhabit, none is more intimate or seemingly more solid than our own physical body. We have been conditioned to see it as a complex biological machine, subject to genetic predispositions, random contagions, and the inevitable decay of time. We believe our health is largely at the mercy of external forces, and we accept sickness and pain as unavoidable parts of the human condition. But the law of assumption invites us to a revolutionary and empowering new perspective. Your body is not a separate, objective machine. It is the most immediate and responsive manifestation of your consciousness. It is the canvas upon which your deepest beliefs and assumptions about health, vitality, and aging are painted in the living ink of flesh and bone. Your body is a reflection of your state, and by changing your state, you can change your body. Consider the inner conversations you have about your physical well-being. For many, these are prayers for sickness, repeated with devout faith day after day. We say things like, "Oh, my back is killing me again. I have such a weak immune system. I always catch whatever is going around. My family has a history of heart problems, so I probably will too. Or I'm not as young as I used to be." All these aches and pains are just part of getting older. These are not harmless observations. They are powerful, creative affirmations. They are instructions being given to the trillions of intelligent cells that constitute your body. Your subconscious mind, the master builder that directs all the autonomous functions of your physical form, hears these commands of sickness and aging and being a faithful servant. It works diligently to make them your reality. You are literally talking yourself into ill health. You are assuming the state of being unwell. And your body, being a perfect mirror, has no choice but to reflect that state. This hypnotic spell is made infinitely more powerful by a medical diagnosis when a person in a position of authority, like a doctor, gives you a label. You have arthritis. You are a diabetic. You suffer from chronic fatigue. We often accept this verdict as an unchangeable part of our identity. We begin to claim ownership of the disease. We say, "My arthritis is acting up," or "My depression is bad today." Notice the possessive pronoun, my. By claiming it, you fuse your identity with the illness. This is one of the most debilitating mistakes you can make. To begin the process of healing, you must, in your own mind, refuse to identify with the sickness. You are not a sick person trying to get well. You are a perfect, a whole, and divine consciousness temporarily experiencing symptoms that are the result of a past state of mind. The mental shift from "I am sick" to "I am experiencing a condition" is the first and most crucial step towards freedom. You must mentally separate your true, eternal self from the temporary shadow being cast upon your body. The application of the law of assumption to healing follows the same principles we have applied to all other areas of life. You must go to the end. You must assume the feeling of the wish fulfilled. In this case, the wish is perfect, vibrant health. The most effective way to do this is not to imagine the process of healing, such as picturing cells fighting disease, as this still keeps your attention on the problem. Instead, you must create a short, simple, to imaginal scene that implies you are already healed. The most powerful scenes are those that involve you doing something you could not do in your sick or pain state. If you have a bad knee that prevents you from running, your scene could be as simple as feeling the wind on your face and the rhythmic pounding of your feet on the pavement as you enjoy a delightful run. If your lungs are weak, you might imagine running up a flight of stairs and arriving at the top, breathing freely and easily, feeling a sense of exhilaration. If you suffer from chronic fatigue, you might imagine yourself dancing with joyous abandon or playing energetically with your children, filled with boundless vitality. The key is to make the scene an action, to feel the physical sensations of health in your own imagination. Feel the flexibility in your spine, feel the strength in your limbs, feel the calm, steady beat of a healthy heart. Feel the pure, clean energy coursing through your veins. You must loop this scene, preferably in the state akin to sleep, until it takes on the tones of reality. You are giving your body a new blueprint. You are replacing the old assumption of sickness with a new, powerful assumption of wholeness. And your subconscious mind will begin to direct the immense intelligence of your body to conform to this new, perfect pattern. There are countless stories of individuals who have used this principle to overcome the most dire of medical prognoses. Consider a person who receives a grim diagnosis from a team of doctors. They are told their condition is incurable, that their future holds only degeneration and pain. The 3D world, represented by the highest medical authority, has handed them a sentence. The average person would accept this verdict, enter the state of the patient, and see their body decline exactly as predicted. But a practitioner of this law knows that the doctor's verdict is only a reflection of a current state, not a final judgment. This person refuses the verdict. They say, "Thank you for your opinion, but I do not accept it. My consciousness is the only reality." This individual then goes to work in the only place where true creation happens, their imagination. They completely ignore the symptoms as much as possible, treating them as lingering shadows of an old reality. Every night, without fail, they live in the assumption of their perfect health. Perhaps they had been an avid hiker before their diagnosis. So, in their imagination, they return to their favorite mountain trail. They feel the solid ground beneath their boots. They smell the pine in the air. They feel the warmth of the sun on their face and the glorious, satisfying burn in their legs as they climb higher and higher. They reach the summit and feel a profound sense of accomplishment and vitality, breathing in the clean mountain air without any difficulty. They live this scene over and over, feeling its reality more and more deeply. They persist in this state of being a healthy, vibrant hiker. Then, the miracles begin. A subsequent doctor's visit reveals a small, inexplicable improvement. The pain lessens. Their energy increases. The doctors are baffled, calling it a spontaneous remission. But it is not spontaneous. It is the lawful and predictable result of a sustained and faithful change in consciousness. Eventually, the physical body, that obedient mirror, completely remolds itself in the image of the perfect health that was held steadfastly in the imagination. And the person is restored to a wholeness that the world of reason had deemed impossible. Your body is not your master. It is your most loyal and immediate servant, flawlessly reflecting the state you choose to occupy. By refusing to identify with illness, by consciously rejecting the inner conversations of pain and aging, and by persistently assuming the feeling of perfect, vibrant health, you can command your physical form to express its innate, divine blueprint of wholeness. This growing mastery over our relationships, our finances, and now even our physical bodies, begins to dissolve the very concept of limitation. As we successfully apply this law to the major pillars of human experience, then we start to see that the walls we once believed were solid are merely curtains we had never tried to push aside. A thrilling question begins to form in the mind. If all this is possible, what isn't? This realization propels us beyond solving problems and into the exhilarating exploration of our own infinite potential. As you continue to apply these principles, assuming new states, revising your past, and remaining faithful to your unseen reality, you will begin to see tangible changes in your life. The relationship will improve. The money will appear. The body will begin to heal. With each successful manifestation, your confidence will grow, and with this growing confidence, a new, exhilarating, and perhaps even frightening question will begin to emerge in your mind. Where does it end? What are the limits of this power? We have been taught to live our lives inside a small, invisible box, a prison constructed from the beliefs of our parents, our teachers, and our society. This is the prison of consensus reality, a set of collective assumptions that we accept as unquestionable truth. Beliefs like, you must work hard for 40 years to retire. Your physical and mental abilities decline with age. Some things are just impossible. We treat these mass-produced limitations as if they were fundamental laws of nature, like gravity. But they are not. They are merely widely held assumptions, and they have no power over you unless you consent to them. Today, we are going to learn how to walk out of that prison, to challenge the impossible, and to discover that the only limits that exist are the ones you place upon yourself. The law of assumption, in and of itself, has no inherent limits. Your imagination, which is the creative power of God within you, is infinite. It can conceive of any state imaginable. Therefore, the only restriction on what you can manifest is the boundary of your own conception. It is the limit of your own audacity. Can you truly imagine yourself living a life of absolute freedom and abundance? Can you conceive of yourself enjoying vibrant health and energy at the age of 100? Can you dare to assume a reality so far beyond your current experience that your rational mind calls it a fantasy? If you can successfully conceive of a state through the techniques we have discussed, enter into it and feel its reality, then there is no power in heaven or on earth that can stop it from coming into being. The universe does not judge your desire based on its size or probability. It only responds to the clarity and persistence of your assumption. Manifesting $10 million is, in principle, no more difficult than manifesting $10. The power required is the same. The only difference lies in the size of the mental and emotional blocks, the limiting beliefs we hold around the larger sum. To begin dissolving these self-imposed limits, you must become a conscious spiritual scientist, experimenting with your own creative power. It is often too great a leap of faith to go from worrying about next month's rent to assuming the state of a billionaire. Faith is a muscle, and like any muscle, it must be trained and strengthened progressively. You can begin this training by consciously manifesting small things that you do not have a great deal of emotional resistance to. Assume you will get a perfect parking spot right in front of the store. Assume you will hear from an old friend you haven't spoken to in years. Assume someone will give you a free cup of coffee. These small, seemingly insignificant acts are your training ground. It is vital that you consciously acknowledge when they happen. Keep a journal of your successes. This builds a portfolio of evidence, a bedrock of personal experience that proves to you, beyond any doubt, that this law is real and that you can work it. Once your faith is strengthened by these smaller successes, you can begin to increase the stakes. Aim for something a little bigger. Something that truly matters to you but doesn't feel completely impossible. Assume the promotion at work. Assume the healing of a chronic but minor health issue. Assume the manifestation of a few $1,000s to take a wonderful vacation. As you succeed in this middle ground, your confidence will soar. You will begin to truly know that you are the creator of your reality. It is from this position of empowered knowing that you can finally begin to challenge the great impossibilities of your life and of human experience. You can dare to go after the dreams you had long since dismissed as childish fantasies. You are systematically expanding the boundaries of the possible in your own mind. And as you do, your world will expand with you. The most powerful real-world illustration of this principle is the story of Roger Bannister and the 4-minute mile. For centuries, the greatest runners and the most respected medical experts in the world were in complete agreement on one fact. It was physiologically impossible for a human being to run a mile in under 4 minutes. It was a known limit of the human body. They believed the heart would literally explode from the strain. This collective, deeply held limiting belief acted as a powerful, invisible wall. Generation after generation of elite athletes would approach this barrier and fall short, proving the experts right. But then came Roger Bannister, a man who dared to challenge this consensus reality. He believed it was possible, and he trained not only his body, but his mind. He used intense visualization and mental rehearsal. In his own imagination, he broke the 4-minute barrier again and again. Long before he ever stepped onto the track, he assumed the state of the man who had already achieved the impossible. Then, on a windy day in Oxford, England, in 1954, he did it. He ran a mile in 3 minutes and 4 seconds. He shattered the impossible barrier. He proved that the collective assumption was wrong. But the most miraculous part of the story is not what Bannister did, but what happened afterward. For decades, no one could break the barrier. It was a sacred limit. But once Bannister had proved it could be done, once the limiting belief in the collective consciousness was dissolved, the floodgates opened. Another runner, John Landy, broke the barrier just 46 days later. The following year, 3 runners broke the 4-minute barrier in a single race. Within a few years, it became a benchmark that dozens of elite runners achieved. What had changed? Had the human body suddenly evolved in 1954? No. What changed was the assumption of what was possible. Roger Bannister's individual act of faith and imagination literally expanded the reality for all of humanity. This is the power you hold. You are invited to be a Roger Bannister in your own life. You are invited to look at the impossible walls in your finances, your health, your relationships, and to know that they are illusions. Collective hypnotic spells that you have the power to break. When you begin to live this way, your life will begin to feel magical. Events that the world calls miracles or lucky coincidences will become commonplace for you. But you will know they are not random. You will understand that a miracle is not a violation of the laws of nature. A miracle is simply the lawful result of a higher law, of which most people are unaware, the law of your own consciousness. A coincidence is your subconscious mind masterfully arranging the bridge of incidents. You are learning to operate from this higher law. And so you will experience results that seem magical to those still living in the prison of consensus reality, as you stand in this newfound awareness of your own limitless potential. as you realize that the only chains that bind you are the chains of your own beliefs. A profound and ultimate question must arise. It is a question that moves beyond what you can do with this power and asks what you are. If your consciousness is the only reality, and if your imagination is a power without limits, capable of challenging the very fabric of possibility, then who and what are you? Really? This question marks the transition from using the law as a tool for personal gain to the ultimate journey of self-discovery, the quest to find the creative God that lies within your own being. We have now traveled far on this incredible journey. You have learned to take the seemingly chaotic clay of your life and mold it into forms that please you. You have learned that your imagination is the potter's hand, capable of shaping your health, your wealth, and your relationships. You have used this power to acquire things, to change circumstances, and to solve problems. This is a wonderful and necessary stage of the journey, but it is only the beginning. The purpose of this power, its ultimate secret, is not to simply fill your life with things. The things are merely the signposts, the breadcrumbs left by your own divine consciousness to lead you back to the source. The true purpose of the law of assumption is not to change your world, but to awaken you to your true identity as the God who is creating it. Today, we journey beyond technique and into the mystery of your own being. We seek the ultimate prize, the discovery of the God within. For millennia, humanity has looked outward for its savior. We have prayed to gods in the sky. We have bowed to idols of wood and stone. We have placed our faith in external powers, hoping that if we were good enough, if we pleaded hard enough, some distant deity would grant our wishes. Neville Goddard taught that this entire model is based on a fundamental misunderstanding. The creative power of the universe is not outside of you. It is the very center of your own being. The most profound mystical statement ever uttered is the name God gives to Moses at the burning bush. I am that I am. This, Neville explained, was not the name of an external entity. It was a revelation of the nature of reality itself, your own awareness of being. The simple, formless, unadorned feeling of I am, that exists before you add any label to it, before you say I am John, or I am a woman, or I am tired. That is God. That silent, still, aware presence at the core of you is the one and only creative power. It is the cause of all that is, all that was, and all that will be. You have been praying to your own consciousness all along. This formless awareness of I am takes on form through the faculty of your imagination. Your wonderful human imagination is not some clever psychological trick you've learned. It is not a secondary tool you possess. Your imagination is the creative act of God in you. When you are truly caught up in an imaginal act, feeling its reality, you are one with your Creator. You are performing the divine function of giving form to the formless. In the scriptures, it is said that Christ in you, the hope of glory. Neville identified this Christ not as a man who lived 2,000 years ago, but as your own wonderful human imagination. It is your imagination that has the power to save you from any state of sickness, poverty, or loneliness, and resurrect you into a new state of health, wealth, or love. To imagine, then, is to participate in a sacred, divine act. It is God in action, through the vehicle of your human mind. This brings us to one of the most beautiful and profound parables in all of Scripture, the story of the pearl of great price. In the story, a merchant, a seeker of fine pearls, finds one pearl of such immense value and beauty that he goes and sells everything he has in order to buy it. This is not a story about commerce. It is the story of your spiritual evolution. You are the merchant. The many fine pearls you have been collecting throughout your life are your various beliefs. They are your religious dogmas, your scientific materialisms, your philosophical convictions, your belief in luck, in fate, in the power of others over you. You collect these beliefs, these external saviors, hoping that one of them will bring you peace or salvation. But then, one day, you stumble upon the one ultimate truth, the one pearl of great price, and that pearl is the discovery that your own consciousness, your own I amness, is the one and only cause, the God you have been seeking in all other places. But notice the condition in the parable. To acquire this one perfect pearl, the merchant had to sell all that he had. He could not keep a few of his old, lesser pearls just in case. He had to let go of everything. This is the great price of this knowledge. To truly possess this truth, you must be willing to sell all your other beliefs. You must sell the belief in an external God who may or may not answer your prayers. You must sell the belief that you are a victim of your circumstances or your past. You must sell the belief that your health is determined by germs or that your wealth is determined by the economy. You must give up every external dependency, every scapegoat, every crutch, and every excuse. You must sell your belief in any power outside of your own consciousness. It is the ultimate trade. You exchange your belief in a myriad of unpredictable external powers for the direct, first-hand, liberating knowledge of the one true, creative power within your own mind. This leads us to the ultimate assumption, the final graduation from this school of life. You began by assuming things. I am wealthy. I am healthy. I am loved. But the final assumption, the one that contains all others, is the assumption of your own divinity. It is the quiet, confident, and world-shaking realization. I am He. He refers to the creative power, the cause of all life, the God spoken of in the scriptures. To say I am, He is to claim your true identity. It is not an act of egoic arrogance. The ego is the little self, the mask you wear. This is an act of supreme humility, a complete surrender of the little self to the great self within. It is the prodigal son, after his long journey through the wilderness of human experience, finally returning home, not just to his father's house, but to the shocking and glorious realization that he is the Father. It is the understanding that you are not a puppet created by God. You are God, the Creator, limiting yourself to the experience of being human in order to dream, to create, and to experience your own magnificent creations. When you begin to live from this ultimate assumption, your entire relationship with the law changes. You no longer see it as a magic wand that you wave to get things from the outside world. You begin to understand that there is no outside world. The entire vast universe is a projection of your own being. The people, the trees, the stars, they are all you pushed out. You look upon the world not with a desire to get, but with a desire to give form, to express, to experience. You are no longer a beggar pleading for scraps from the master's table. You are the master of the feast, deciding what you wish to bring forth. This is the pearl of great price. It is the discovery that the kingdom of heaven is not a place you go to when you die, but a state of consciousness you can enter right now by accepting your true identity as its king. This discovery, this ultimate awakening to the God within, is the true destination of our spiritual journey. But this realization is not an end. It is a new beginning. It comes with a profound and awesome responsibility, for if you truly are the creator of your world, then how must you now live? How must you think, speak, and act, knowing that your every thought is a command and your every feeling is a prayer that will be answered? This new identity requires a new way of life. You have now been given the keys to the kingdom. You have discovered the pearl of great price, the staggering truth that your own consciousness, your I amness, is the one and only creative power. You have learned the techniques to mold reality, the mental diet, revision, and the art of entering a state through the sacred gateway of Sats. But the ultimate goal of this teaching is not to leave you with a collection of techniques. It is to usher you into a new way of life. The time has come to move beyond doing the law and to begin being the law. This is the final integration. The shift from consciously applying a principle to unconsciously living from it. This is the art of truly living from the end. Living from the end is not a part-time practice. You perform for a few minutes before you fall asleep. It is a total immersion experience. It is the decision to live your life 24 hours a day, psychologically housed within the state of your wish fulfilled. You no longer see your desire as something in the future that you are trying to attract. You accept it as a present fact and begin to think, I feel, speak, and act from that new reality. Every moment of your day becomes an opportunity to embody this new self-concept. You are no longer a person hoping to become wealthy. You are a wealthy person, simply attending to the details of your abundant life. You are no longer a person searching for love. You are a deeply loved and cherished person, moving through your world with an inner sense of security and warmth. This is the most profound shift you will ever make. From striving to being, from wanting to having, from seeking to knowing. What does the daily life of a person living from the end look like? They wake in the morning not with a mind full of problems to solve, but with a heart full of gratitude for the reality they have already claimed. Their first thoughts are not, how will I get through this day? But rather, isn't it wonderful that my life is so joyful and fulfilling? As they move through their day, their interactions with others are different because they understand that everyone is them pushed out. They naturally assume the best in everyone they meet. They are not needy or defensive because their sense of worth and security comes from within, from the state they are occupying when faced with a challenge or an apparent contradiction from the 3D world. They do not react with fear or despair. They see it with a calm detachment, recognizing it as either a necessary step on the bridge of incidents or as an old shadow that is quickly fading away. Their emotional center of gravity remains firmly planted in their fulfilled reality. Consequently, their actions are different. They are no longer driven by desperation or a need to make things happen. Instead, their actions are inspired, flowing naturally and effortlessly from their state of being. They do the right thing at the right time, not because they have schemed it, but because they are living in harmony with their inner truth. The process of reaching this state of being can be perfectly compared to learning a new language. When you first begin to learn a language, it is a conscious, clumsy effort. You have to mentally translate every word. You struggle to form sentences. This is like the beginning practitioner of the law. You have to consciously remember to do your sats, to revise a negative event, to go on a mental diet. It feels like work because it is not yet your natural way of thinking. With consistent practice, you become more conversational. You can speak with less effort, though you still make mistakes and occasionally have to search for a word. This is the intermediate stage, where you have had some successes with the law and are gaining confidence, but you still have to consciously apply the principles. The final stage, the goal, is fluency. A fluent speaker does not translate. They think, feel, and even dream in the new language. It has become a fundamental part of who they are. This is the state of living from the end. You have practiced, assuming your desired state so consistently that it has become your new nature. You no longer have to try to feel wealthy. Wealth is your default mental state. You no longer have to try to feel loved. Being loved is your natural way of being. You have stopped thinking of your desire and have started thinking from it. When you reach this state of fluency, the primary feeling is one of utter naturalness. Your grand desire, the thing you once longed for with such intensity, no longer feels like a big deal. Of course you are successful. Of course your health is vibrant. Of course you are adored. Why would it be any other way? It feels as natural as your own name. This feeling of naturalness is the hallmark of a truly impressed subconscious mind. And with this naturalness comes a profound sense of calm and a complete lack of striving. The anxious, grasping energy is gone. The need to check for signs, to seek reassurance, to force things to happen, it all dissolves. You can relax, knowing that the world must and will reflect the person you have become. You can rest in the Sabbath not just for an hour after your imaginal act, but as a continuous, moment-to-moment state of being. Every moment of your life then becomes a conscious, creative opportunity. Standing in a line is no longer a moment of impatience, but a quiet opportunity to feel gratitude for the abundance that allows you to be there. A conversation with a friend is no longer just a conversation, but an opportunity to practice seeing the best in them and wishing them well. Your entire life transforms from a series of reactions to external stimuli into a continuous and joyful expression of your own divine consciousness. You see the world not as a solid, menacing place, but as a beautiful and malleable reflection of your own magnificent being. You are no longer a character being tossed about by the plot. You are the serene author, Ben in Hunt, joyfully writing the next beautiful chapter of your life simply by living it. This way of life, this embodiment of the law, is the graduation from the school of creation. It is the joyful acceptance of your role as the operant power in your world. It is the peace that passes all understanding. And when you truly begin to live from this place, an interesting thing happens. Your focus naturally begins to expand beyond your own personal desires. By embodying a state of peace, of abundance, and of love, you become a powerful, positive force in the world without even trying. Your very presence begins to uplift those around you. You prove, through the evidence of your own transformed life, what is possible for all. This realization, that your inner state affects not only your own life but the entire world you perceive, leads to the highest application of this law, using your creative power not just for yourself, but as a loving gift to others and to the world. As we approach the summit of this understanding, having realized our own limitless nature and our identity as the creative power of the universe, we are faced with a beautiful and profound question. What is the highest and best use of this divine power? We have learned to use it for ourselves, to manifest health, wealth, and happiness. This is a necessary and wonderful part of the journey, for we cannot share what we do not have. But to remain only at the level of personal gain is to taste but a single drop from an infinite ocean. The true joy, the ultimate expression of our awakened consciousness, lies in turning this power outward, in using our magnificent human imagination as a loving gift to the world. This is the highest application of the law, the practice that transforms us from successful individuals into blessings upon humanity. It is the Golden Rule, reinterpreted for the conscious creator. The Golden Rule, as taught to us, states, "Do unto others as you would have them do unto you." For centuries, we have interpreted this as a guide for our physical actions. Be kind, be charitable. To be honest, these are noble pursuits, but Neville Goddard revealed a far deeper, more fundamental meaning. He taught that our primary doing, the causal act that creates all others, is the act of imagination. Our inner world is the blueprint for the outer. Therefore, to truly live the Golden Rule, we must apply it on the level of imagination. The rule becomes, imagine for others what you would have them imagine for you. Or, more simply, see for others what you would want for yourself. Do you desire health? Then when you hear of a friend who is unwell, you must see them in your imagination as vibrant, whole, and perfectly healthy. Do you desire abundance? Then when you hear of another's financial struggles, you must dare to imagine them prosperous, secure, and successful. Do you desire love and companionship? Then for the lonely soul, you must feel the warmth of their joyful partnership. This is not mere positive thinking. This is a direct, causal, creative act. To understand why this works so powerfully, we must return to the principle that everyone is you pushed out. In the ultimate reality of consciousness, there is no separation. There is no other. The entire world and all of its inhabitants are a projection of your own being. Therefore, the act of imagining lovingly for another is not sending a good vibe across a void to a separate person. It is the act of changing a part of your own consciousness. When you see a friend is unemployed and struggling, you are holding a part of your own consciousness in the state of unemployment. When you dare to revise this and see that same friend as joyfully and gainfully employed, you are transforming that part of your consciousness into a state of success. Because you and your friend are one in the deeper world of imagination. Lifting them up automatically lifts you up. It is impossible to genuinely feel the thrill of another's success without partaking in that feeling yourself. It is impossible to imagine another person in a state of perfect health without impressing the blueprint of health upon your own subconscious mind. It is the ultimate spiritual truth. What you give, you receive. Because you are only ever giving to another aspect of yourself. Neville Goddard lived this principle as the cornerstone of his work. At the end of his lectures, people would often line up to tell him of their troubles. They would speak of unemployment, of sickness, of heartbreak, of every imaginable human problem. Neville, in his great wisdom, rarely offered conventional advice. He knew that to discuss the problem was to give it more reality. Instead, he would listen intently, and then, in the quiet theater of his own mind, he would perform the creative act for them. He would hear the person not telling him their problem, but telling him their good news. He would hear the man who was unemployed say, "Neville, I got the most wonderful job." He would hear the woman with the health concern say, "My doctor was amazed. The tests came back clear." He would hear the heartbroken individual say, "I have never been so happy. I am in the most wonderful relationship." Neville would then feel the genuine thrill, the vicarious joy of their success, feeling it as if it were his own. He knew that if he could produce the feeling of the wish fulfilled within himself on their behalf, their reality had to conform. And for countless people, it did. He considered this his most important work. Not teaching the law, but living it. Using his controlled imagination as a fountain of blessing for all who asked. This is a power you can and should cultivate. It is the practice that will elevate you from a student of these mysteries to a master. It begins with a conscious choice. When you hear bad news about someone, a friend, a family member, or even a stranger in a news report, your first conditioned reaction might be one-off pity or fear. You must recognize that pity is not a virtue. It is a negative creative act. To pity someone is to see them in their state of lack and to feel sorry for them, which only helps to nail them more firmly to their cross. You must refuse to participate in this negative creation. Instead, you must choose to become their unseen savior. Take 30 seconds. It does not require a long, elaborate ritual. Close your eyes, and in your imagination, revise the story. Hear the good news. See the happy outcome. A friend has lost their job. Imagine them calling you, their voice filled with excitement, to tell you about a new, even better position they just accepted. A relative is going in for surgery. Imagine them a week later, relaxed and smiling, telling you how smoothly everything went and how quickly they are recovering. Feel the relief and the joy for them. Then, and this is crucial, let it go. You have planted the seed of good news in the universal subconscious. You have done your work. You can release it, trusting that you have set a powerful, positive cause in motion. This act of imagining lovingly for others is the ultimate expression of your divine nature. It is the understanding that you are not just a creator, but a co-creator of the world you experience. Every time you refuse to accept a negative story about another, and instead replace it with a loving one in your imagination, you are casting a vote for a better world. You are weaving a thread of light into the collective tapestry. This practice will transform you. It will dissolve your sense of separation and fill you with a profound sense of connection to all of life. It will shift your focus from what you can get to what you can give. And in that shift, you will find that you receive more than you could ever have imagined. It is the pathway to a life of continuous grace and quiet miracles. Having journeyed from the foundational principles of this teaching to its highest and most noble application, we have now come full circle. We have explored the power to change our lives and the power to bless the lives of others. All that remains is to gather these profound truths into a final, empowering message, to understand the ultimate promise that this knowledge holds, and to step forward, once and for all, into the magnificent reality of the person you were always meant to be. We stand now at the culmination of our journey together. Having traveled from the shores of confusion to the heart of creation, we began where most of humanity lives, in the state of the victim, believing ourselves to be small, powerless beings tossed about by the unpredictable winds of fate and circumstance. We looked at our world and saw it as a solid, unchangeable reality that happened to us. We have since embarked on a great adventure of discovery, and in doing so, we have systematically dismantled that old and fearful world. We learned that the universe is not our master, but our mirror. We discovered the profound difference between merely wishing for a thing through attraction and claiming it as our own through assumption. You learn to become the gatekeeper of your own mind, to put yourself on a mental diet, starving doubt and feeding faith. You were given the divine power of revision, the ability to reach back into the past and transform it, healing old wounds and freeing yourself from the chains of cause and effect. You learned the sacred art of entering a new state through the gateway of Sats, of falling asleep in the reality of your wish fulfilled. You came to understand the true meaning of faith, not as a desperate hope, but as a confident loyalty to your unseen reality. You learned to rest in the Sabbath, knowing that what is done in imagination is done in fact. Trusting the bridge of incidents to unfold in its own perfect time, you were given the master key to all human relationships with the staggering revelation that everyone is you pushed out, dissolving all blame and making you the sole author of the interactions in your life. You applied these principles to the great pillars of human experience, assuming the states of wealth, of love, and of vibrant health. You learned to drop old, unwanted states through the liberating power of forgiveness. You challenged the very notion of impossibility, realizing that the only limits are the ones you accept. And finally, you arrived at the ultimate revelation, the pearl of great price, the discovery that the creative power you have been using is not a tool you possess, but the very essence of your own being. You are not a user of the law, you are the law in operation. You are the I Am, the creative God experiencing your own creation. Let this truth be the foundation upon which you now build your entire life. The world is a flawless and impartial mirror. It has no opinion, no judgment, no agenda of its own. It can only, and will only, reflect back to you the truth of who you believe you are. Every struggle you have ever had was the result of trying to change the reflection while holding the same expression on your face. You tried to change your poverty while feeling poor. You tried to find love while feeling lonely. You tried to get well while feeling sick. Today, that struggle ends. Your work is never on the outside. Your work is only ever on the inside. Upon your own consciousness. Upon your own assumptions. Change your assumption. And the mirror, by its very nature, must change its reflection. This is the great, immutable law. If there is only one message you take from our entire time together, let it be this: become the conscious master of your inner conversations, your inner talking. That ceaseless stream of words that flows through your mind all day long is the most powerful creative force in the universe. It is the loom upon which the fabric of your reality is woven, thread by thread. It is the prayer that is being answered without fail. Every moment of every day. For too long, you have allowed this prayer to be one of worry, of doubt, of criticism, and of fear. You have been talking yourself into the very experiences you have been desperate to escape. The call to action is simple: change the script. Begin, from this moment forward, to tell yourself the story you wish to live. Speak to yourself as if you are already the person you desire to be. Have the inner conversations that would be yours if your dreams were already your reality. Persist in this new, loving, and noble inner speech. Water it with your attention. Remain faithful to it. This one discipline, practiced with commitment, will transform your entire world. Imagine that your life is a grand play being performed on the stage of the universe. For most of your life, you have believed that you were merely a minor character, perhaps even a stagehand, reading lines from a script that was handed to you by an unknown author, a script called fate, or chance, or God. You believed you had no control over the plot, the characters, or the ending. The great awakening, the truth you now possess, is the realization that you have been mistaken about your role. You are not a minor character. You are the playwright, the director, and the star actor, all in one. The script is not fixed. It is being written, moment by moment, by your own assumptions and inner conversations. The other actors are not independent agents. They are dutifully playing the parts you have assigned them. At any moment, you can pick up the pen. You can cross out the scenes of tragedy and write in scenes of triumph. You can delete the monologues of lack and replace them with soliloquies of abundance. You can transform the villain into the hero. You are in complete and total control of your own play. This is your power. This is your freedom. This is your divine birthright. This teaching is known as the law, for it is the lawful way in which creation works. But behind the law, there is what Neville called the promise. The law is the means by which you, as a human being, can create a life of your own choosing. The promise is the ultimate destiny of your spiritual journey, the purpose for which you entered this world of dream. It is the eventual awakening within you of your true identity as God the Father. The successful application of the law is what leads you to the fulfillment of the promise. As you successfully change your world time and time again through the power of your imagination, you will eventually come to the undeniable, experiential knowledge that you and the creative power of the universe are one and the same. This is the great purpose of life, to awaken from the dream of being human and to remember your true identity as God. The law is the path, but the promise is the destination. And so, you now stand as the operant power in your own universe. The world is not happening to you, it is flowing from you. The universe is not a cold, indifferent machine, but a loving and infinitely responsive reflection of your own magnificent consciousness. It is waiting, always, for your command, for your assumption, for your new story. Do not look to the outside for your good. Look only within. The power, the glory, the kingdom, it is all within you. Now and forever, you have been given the keys. The only question that remains is, which door will you now choose to open? We have reached the end of this journey of words, but the beginning of your new life as a conscious creator. Together, we have traveled from the shadowlands of circumstance into the radiant light of causation. We began as actors reading from a script we thought was written by fate, and we have discovered that we are, and always have been, the sole author of our own magnificent play. We have learned to harness the power of our inner conversations, to redeem our past through revision, and to step into any reality we desire through the sacred act of assumption. You have discovered that the world is but a mirror, that every person in it is a reflection of you, and that the creative power of God is not in some distant heaven, but is your own wonderful human imagination. You have made the ultimate discovery. You are not a creation. You are the creator. Let this be the one central truth that you carry forward from this day. Your reality is not something you must endure. It is something you must express. It is a perfect and impartial reflection of who you are assuming yourself to be. The universe does not give you what you want, for wanting is an admission of lack. The universe gives you what you are. Therefore, the great work of your life is to simply become, in your own imagination, the person you wish to be. Start today. Start now. Begin to talk to yourself with the reverence, love, and admiration you would afford to the person you most respect. Tell yourself the story of your success, of your health, of your happiness, and persist in that new story until it drowns out the old, tired echoes of your past. Your assumption, if persisted in, will harden into fact. It is the law. The power to change your entire world does not lie in a book or in a teacher. It lies dormant within you, waiting to be awakened. Do not be overwhelmed by the scale of this truth. The journey to a new life begins with a simple step. The step you can take today is this. Simply notice your next inner conversation, and if it is one of worry or lack, gently, without judgment, change it to one of praise or abundance. That is all. In that one small act of conscious redirection, you reclaim your power. You are the master of your fate, the captain of your soul. You are the operant power. The entire world is your own consciousness, pushed out, waiting patiently for your new direction. Assume the best, assume the beautiful, assume the wonderful, and watch as your world blossoms in perfect reflection of the divine being that you have finally chosen to become.